when a disciplined zombie emerges. How terrifying can it be? This zombie's name is John C. Every day, he runs a light year, then competes in swimming races with sharks. Even before going to sleep, he does a few dance exercises to feel at ease. While other zombies only crave flesh, all he sees is protein powder. In the end, John C. became completely bald. But he grew stronger. Everything he did was for one purpose: to befriend humans. The reason for this traces back to the day the apocalypse erupted. John C. was in class listening to a lecture when he suddenly turned into a zombie. From then on, he wandered with a horde of the undead, roaming aimlessly, until one day, humans appeared with cannons. Not only did they slaughter his kind, but they also used advanced technology to turn zombies into eternal energy sources. John C. didn't understand why humans hunted zombies, just as he didn't understand why zombies devoured humans. But to survive, he had to fight. He had to become stronger, to change the way humans saw zombies. Will John C. achieve his dream? What challenges will he face on his journey? Let's dive into the story to find out. Under the peaceful twilight sky, a train continued its steady journey along the tracks. Its wheels rolled over the steel rails. But suddenly, the train began accelerating. Along the roadside, countless people bustled about, unaware of the impending danger. In the train's cabin, the conductor leaned out of the window and shouted in panic, "Run! The train has lost control." Railway workers leapt from the train in desperation, while those outside, hearing the conductor's frantic cries, turned in shock. Then, chaos erupted. "Run for your lives!" someone screamed. In the midst of the commotion, a baby stroller's wheel suddenly got stuck between the tracks. A panicked mother struggled to move it, her voice trembling. "Somebody help me!" Those who had already fled could only stand and shout, "Get out of there! It's too late!" The runaway train hurtled straight toward the mother and child. Behind the panicking crowd, a hooded young man silently observed the scene. Then, in an instant, before anyone could react, his figure disappeared. At the most critical moment, the young man reappeared, delivering a devastating punch that shattered the train's locomotive. The sheer force sent the entire engine and attached cars crashing off their tracks, colliding violently into each other. The mother, clutching her terrified child, shut her eyes tightly. When everything suddenly fell silent, she hesitantly opened them. Before her, nothing remained but a blinding white mist, and the tall, unwavering silhouette of a young man standing there. The stone hit the ground, bounced a few times, and finally came to a stop. The young man reached out his hand, offering to help the mother. "Are you all right?" She placed her hand on his arm and replied, "Thank you." Both the mother and child gazed at their savior. But in an instant, their faces paled in terror. The man before them had deathly pale skin, a mouth full of sharp teeth, and hollow, sunken eyes that looked eerily dark. A piercing scream echoed through the sky. The scene shifted to the exterior of a house, where a pair of small yellow pants hung outside to dry. Inside, a young man stretched energetically after a good night's sleep. "My name is John C.," he said. John C. turned toward his window, welcoming the warm morning sunlight. John, like a hopping vampire. C., like a hopping vampire. His pink outfit, adorned with mustache patterns, stood out against his lean body. His exact age and time of death were unknown. He entered the bathroom and stared at himself in the mirror. "I have a dream," he muttered. A deep, heartfelt desire burned within him. He spoke his wish aloud. "I dream of one day becoming friends with humans. I dream of a day when they won't fear or shun me." John C. squeezed toothpaste onto his brush as he continued to encourage himself. "I always give my best for this goal, even if it seems impossible. I believe that as long as I keep trying." As he finished brushing, a tooth dropped into the sink. He sighed but didn't dwell on it. John C. then reached up with a hook to grab a jacket from a high shelf. "To make this dream a reality, I've helped humans many times before," he reflected. There was one time when a plane plummeted like a moth into a football stadium. Panic erupted as the people below scattered in terror. Spectators in the stands trampled over each other, scrambling to higher ground. "It's too dangerous," someone cried. Suddenly, another person gasped, pointing toward the falling aircraft. "Look over there. What is that?" The plane had stopped midair, held in place by an invisible force. John C. was the one stopping it. The onlookers were left in stunned silence, mouths hanging open. Another time, a high-rise apartment building was engulfed in flames, sending residents into a frenzy. "Fire! My child is still inside," a desperate parent wailed. John C. rushed into the inferno. Moments later, he emerged, carrying multiple children in his arms, shocking even the firefighters on the scene. John C. caught the towel and began reminiscing. Back then, before I had this strong body, I remember the city being packed with apartment buildings. A strange aura lingered in the air. It was a summer day, the day the apocalypse arrived. The zombie outbreak erupted. He recounted everything slowly. I was sitting in class when it happened. Those who couldn't escape in time were bitten, turning into ordinary zombies. They frantically bit one another, and before long, the entire city became a wasteland of the undead. Yes, I was just one of those mindless, ordinary zombies. At that time, I wandered through the crowd, wobbling around like an idiot. I was like a low-ranking soldier, mindlessly following the horde wherever it went. Then, the humans arrived, with hot-barreled weapons. Later on, more people appeared, muscular military personnel armed with guns and explosives. They didn't bother reasoning with me. The moment they saw me, they shoved a fire-spewing weapon in my face. The weaker zombies were instantly shot in the head. Some of the dumber ones were taken away to become high-ranking servants. Humans didn't just turn us into living lanterns. They even invented the eternal zombie engine to generate unlimited electricity for themselves. John C. lay on his simple bed back then, lost in thought. I never understood why zombies had to eat humans, nor why humans had to massacre zombies. To survive, I decided to change myself. He dragged himself to the gym, powered up the machines, and started training. From that day on, I became disciplined, even though my first attempt at lifting weights nearly scared my soul out of my body. I persisted. Every day, I exercised, running, swimming, dancing, to increase my endurance. To push myself even further, I even used sharks to chase me. Living differently meant saying goodbye to meat. My meals became simple, but I was committed to nourishing my body. I ate nothing but egg whites daily. Even at home, I never skipped training, no matter how exhausted I was. I pushed through my nightly aerobic sessions. And then, one day, it happened. My muscles became solid and well-defined. I had succeeded. Looking at my reflection, I saw a body chiseled with a perfect six-pack. I had become invincible. Then, I made my decision. I donned a full-body outfit and set my sights on the city. With strength and intelligence, I infiltrated human society. By now, humans had advanced tremendously. Their vast numbers gave me opportunities to blend in, to change their perspective on zombies. I constantly helped them. I worked hard to be a model zombie citizen, polite, civilized, law-abiding. John C. continued hanging his freshly washed shirt, silently determined to keep going. John C. opened the fridge, only to find an empty container. No more food? That meant he had no choice but to go out and buy some. The sun blazed down from above as he stepped out. Inside a convenience store, the cheerful cashier greeted him with a smile. "Little John, here to restock again?" she asked casually. She glanced at him curiously. "Don't you get uncomfortable wearing that mask all day?" John C. grabbed a few cartons of eggs and replied, "Not at all." Outside, a delivery truck was busy being loaded with eggs. "Everyone, help Mr. John load the eggs onto the truck. Let's get going." He chatted with the cashier, completely unaware that two figures, one young, one old, were watching him from a distance. The younger one turned to his companion. "Captain, it's really him, right?" The older man narrowed his eyes at John C. and nodded. "Yes, today, we're exposing his true identity. Let's see who he really is beneath that mask." Through their binoculars, they observed his every move. As John C. waved goodbye to the store staff, he picked up a piece of paper and let out a sigh. "Dog A is on the wanted list again." The paper displayed an image of a masked zombie labeled SSS level threat. The young man with the camera muttered, "He looks just like a superhero. I mean, lifting a whole plane? What if this was all just media exaggeration?" The older man remained focused. "No, I'm certain, we're going to unmask him." Just as he finished speaking, their jaws dropped in shock. John C. had effortlessly lifted an entire truck with both hands, as if it weighed nothing. He glanced toward the sky, preparing for something. Then, boom, the ground cracked under the force of his leap. With a single burst of energy, he shot straight up into the sky like some kind of magic trick. The two spies gawked, stunned. What the hell? Beyond Earth's atmosphere, John C. soared through the skies, carrying the entire truck, heading toward another continent. The place he arrived at was heavily barricaded. The sky was dark. Wandering throughout the ruined city streets, Zombies aimlessly roamed. A small child clung to his mother, whining, "Mom, I'm so hungry." The woman gently reassured him. "Just a little longer, sweetheart." John C. finally arrived, landing with a tremendous impact. The sheer force of his descent shook the ground, almost distorting space itself. Gently, he placed the truck onto the ground. The surrounding zombies gawked, jaws dropping in awe. "The king has returned." A small child approached, curiosity in his eyes. "Your Majesty, you move so fast, why don't you just drive here like humans do?" John C. responded, though his answer left them puzzled. "I don't have a driver's license." The entire district was drenched in a bleak, desolate atmosphere. This was his domain, a sanctuary where zombies could escape from human persecution. "I have decreed that all residents must replace human flesh with chicken eggs," he declared. Hands on his hips, he turned to the child. "Where's Dog A?" The child pointed toward a ruined building. "They're in that collapsed hotel." John C. strolled over and casually pushed open the apartment door. Inside, 5 SSS-level zombie bosses awaited. Wolf A, a ferocious, werewolf-like zombie. Mao A, another deadly undead beast. Cam A, a towering muscle-bound creature. Dog A, slightly weaker, but still fearsome. Cu A, his twisted face exuding menace. Blackie, the most composed and refined of them all. As soon as they saw him, they lined up in unison and saluted. "Welcome back, King." John C. walked past Dog A and slapped a piece of paper onto his chest. "Dog A, you're on the human wanted list again." Dog A hung his head in shame. "I'm sorry, Your Majesty, I just can't control myself when I see humans." John C. sighed, then moved toward his usual seat, a battered old sofa sitting amidst a junkyard of debris. Blackie spoke up. "Although our zombie territory is expanding rapidly, we've had to switch capitals several times to avoid human patrols." Cua, gripping a rusty chainsaw, growled impatiently. "Boss, let us loose. We haven't spilled blood in ages. My chainsaw's practically rusted shut." John C. immediately shut him down. "Do you fools even understand? Humans are terrifying." Suddenly, a deafening roar filled the sky. "What's that noise?" A fighter jet sliced through the clouds, flying in a direct, unwavering path. Up in the cockpit, a voluptuous woman with perfect curves sat, her ample assets fully loaded with determination. She was waiting, seething with anticipation. Tu Lang stood firmly on the airship, her arms crossed as she observed the scene ahead with a stern expression. Her gaze was fixed on the coordinate display in front of her, silently calculating every detail. From the cockpit, a crew member reported in. "Madam Chief, all systems are functioning normally. Everything is ready to proceed." Inside the massive airship, something ominous lurked, a nuclear warhead, fully activated and set to detonate in 20 minutes. Meanwhile, back at the zombie stronghold, John C. sat leisurely, only to look up in surprise at the woman above. A smirk of satisfaction flickered across his lips, then instantly twisted into a deep, burning hatred. "Perfect, now come at us, you filthy humans." The fighter aircraft drew closer to the city, nearing the point where its presence could no longer go unnoticed. AKU's eyes widened the moment he spotted it. Humans. His battle hunger flared as he immediately turned to John C. "Boss, let me go cut them down." But before he could act, John C. stepped forward and stopped him. "No, if you go near humans, you'll lose control. Take the citizens and evacuate first." His expression was unshaken, deadly serious as he made his decision. "I'll go out there myself." Back aboard the airship, Tu Lang continued relaying commands. "Ground unit, do you copy?" On a rocky road below, 3 trucks carrying human survivors sped forward. "You have 20 minutes to locate any survivors," she ordered. The ground troops, fully armed with weapons and reinforced armor, responded in unison. "Understood. We'll evacuate immediately after 20 minutes." At the rear of the airship, a figure stepped forward. Tiu Vo, his blade gleaming under the morning sun, stood tall against the sky, an imposing warrior prepared for battle. As soon as he received his orders, he gave a sharp grin beneath his mask. "Understood, Madam Chief. Rest assured, the moment those zombie bosses show up, I'll slice them to pieces." Back in the city, the undead reacted. The blinding morning light from above drew them in, and waves of zombies surged toward the disturbance. Meanwhile, in a secure command center, a scientist watched an even larger screen filled with real-time data. A bald-headed boy adjusted his glasses and smirked in amusement. Interesting. That seems to be one of the Academy's extraordinary humans out there. His interest piqued, and his lips curled into a sinister grin. Let's have some fun with them, shall we? With a forceful slam, he pressed the red button. Immediately, a large containment cage was released from the airship, filled with terrified human survivors. Their desperate screams echoed through the battlefield. Help! Somebody! Please save us! The horde of zombies, upon spotting a living human, surged forward like a flood. The soldiers below quickly received orders through their communication devices. Squad A attention. Survivors detected. Move in for support. The commander nodded in acknowledgement, then set up a firing position. With that, countless bullets were unleashed. Hugh was in the midst of the battle when he suddenly halted, eyes widening at a bizarre sight. What the hell? Why isn't that zombie dying? Two small zombies huddled together in fear under the hail of bullets. At that moment, Zhang-Si stepped forward and raised both hands, shielding them. Many snipers immediately trained their sights on him, exclaiming, "Nothing is immortal. If it survives, the caliber just isn't big enough." A larger bullet was fired, soaring through the air before reaching its target. Within seconds, it exploded, sending flames and thick smoke billowing into the surroundings, quickly obscuring everything. Out of the haze, a soldier emerged, holding up a document. Did we just shoot the wrong guy? The document contained an image of Zhang-Si, carrying an airplane. That masked guy, the one who always helps people. Another soldier grabbed the paper and shouted, "We hit the wrong target." Yet, Zhang-Si's body remained unscathed. He simply turned his head slightly and continued gazing at the aircraft as if nothing had happened. At the same time, Zi Lang noticed a red alert flashing on the map. She immediately issued a command. "Move out. The rear of the ship is compromised." From Area B, Xiao Wu appeared. "The zombie boss has been spotted. Leave it to me." Without hesitation, Xiao Wu leapt from a great height, free falling toward the battlefield. Meanwhile, Dr. Kiet Min stood silently before his high-tech screen. His subordinates were furiously typing away at their keyboards. "They're about to evacuate the civilians," one of them reported. "It seems we can't underestimate them." Kiet Min murmured before issuing a simple yet chilling order. "Increase the intensity." A devious smile spread across his subordinate's face, their glasses flashing ominously as understanding dawned. Outside, the massive zombie horde continued to gather. Suddenly, an eerie transformation took place. A particular zombie's facial skin tore apart, and his arm grotesquely swelled. His muscles expanded uncontrollably, warping his small, frail body into a towering monstrosity, a terrifying, mutated beast. Zhang-Si was in a different location when he suddenly sensed a strange surge of power. The mutated zombie let out a deafening roar, while Xiao Wu was still plummeting from the airship. A transmission came through the soldiers' radios. "Attention, all squads. A zombie boss has appeared in Zone B." Hugh immediately responded. "Understood, we're heading there now." But suddenly, their captain bolted away at full speed. Startled, she blurted out, "Captain?" Zhang-Si, still standing in confusion, barely had time to react before the captain grabbed him and dragged him away just in time, saving his life in the nick of time. "Saving a life is better than building 7 towers," the captain muttered as he carried Zhang-Si away from the zombie horde. Hugh and her teammate stared in shock as the captain roughly tossed Zhang-Si into a transport vehicle. Without missing a beat, he turned to his subordinate in the driver's seat. "Step on it, or do you need me to give you a reward first?" The car spun its wheels, screeched in circles, then shot off at full speed. After the chaotic escape, they eventually steadied their pace, cruising along the empty road. At that moment, Hugh finally broke the silence. "You're the masked guy who always helps people, right? I've been wondering, why do you always wear that mask?" Zhang-Si stiffened, his words catching in his throat. He stammered, unable to find an answer. Meanwhile, back on the battlefield, the remaining soldiers hesitated, lowering their weapons. What is it trying to do?" The mutated zombie suddenly gripped a vehicle and lifted it effortlessly, before hurling the entire bus straight at them. The soldiers gasped in shock. "Danger!" But in that instant, Xiao Wu appeared in a flash of light. Before their eyes, the bus was sliced cleanly in half in a blink, its two halves flying apart and landing meters away. There he stood in the center, sword in hand, exuding sheer dominance. The soldiers burst into cheers. It's Xiao Wu from the Blade Academy. Yes, we have hope now. Xiao Wu unsheathed his second sword, stood tall, and declared, "Evacuate the civilians first. Leave this to me." Meanwhile, Hu and her squad worked tirelessly, leading people to safety one by one. "Don't push, we're not zombies," she reminded them. Then, a sudden realization struck her. She spun around to check behind her, but there was no one there anymore. She froze. "Where's the masked guy?" Xiao Wu stood calmly, facing the monstrous zombie with unwavering composure. "Does it hurt?" The zombie roared in agony, its dark, gaping mouth stretching wide before it lunged at him in a fury. Xiao Wu smoothly drew his blade from its sheath and, in one swift motion, dashed past the creature, slashing through its body. Then, with effortless grace, he reversed his sword and slid it back into its sheath. "I'll set you free." His figure blurred amidst the blinding white haze, as if an impossibly fast series of actions had just taken place. Countless slashes intertwined like an invisible web, slicing through the air in mere moments. Xiao Wu slid his foot lightly across the ground and raised his sword high. Not a single drop of blood was spilled, yet the massive zombie had already suffered fatal wounds. Frozen in place, it suddenly erupted into a gruesome explosion, blackening the space around it. Its lifeless body crashed heavily to the ground. Xiao Wu sheathed his sword with practiced ease and exhaled in satisfaction. "All done, I can rest early today." At that moment, Zhang Si's footsteps approached, drawing closer to Xiao Wu. Noticing the movement, Xiao Wu's eyes flickered with surprise. For a brief second, the small shadow of Zhang Si made him hesitate. A half-destroyed zombie lay motionless, unable to regenerate, but Zhang Si's face held only sorrow as he gazed at the fallen creature. Meanwhile, aboard the airship, a cheerful voice relayed the latest update. "News just came in. The zombie boss has been eliminated by Xiao Wu." Zi Lang smiled. "Well done, let's head back and give him the credit he deserves." Back on the ground, Zhang Si's voice grew low and heavy as he knelt beside the lifeless body of his former friend. "It wasn't your fault. I'm sorry. We lost control." Hearing his words, Xiao Wu's expression darkened. "We?" In an instant, Xiao Wu slashed at Zhang Si without hesitation, reckless and decisive. "Zombies must die." At the same time, a woman monitoring the battlefield suddenly gasped as a new alert appeared on her screen. "Wait, a new zombie boss has been detected on the ground." A man beside her, calm and composed, dismissed her reaction. "Why are you panicking? Don't worry, Xiao Wu is there. Killing it will be simple." But this time, she frowned in disbelief. "Xiao Wu is already gone." Zi Lang turned sharply, eyes wide in shock. "What?" Xiao Wu's body was battered, bruised, and covered in blood. He had been stripped of his weapons and hung from a street lamp. His secrets fully exposed. She spoke cautiously, her expression uneasy. "Xiao Wu's life force is fading. He's been severely wounded." The man beside her was just as stunned. The civilians had yet to be evacuated, but this unexpected turn of events left everyone frozen. Zi Lang stood still for a moment, deep in thought. The more she pondered, the angrier she became. She let out a sharp, frustrated huff. Without waiting, she suddenly disappeared from the ship's cabin, her silhouette vanishing in a blur. The crew aboard the ship gasped. "Chief!" One of them frantically typed commands onto the control panel, shouting, "Chief, you're acting recklessly. We're not ready yet." But Zi Lang, her voice filled with impatience, shot back, "I want to see how strong it really is." A small white light streaked through the sky as she descended rapidly. Zhang Si, noticing the movement, turned his head just in time to see her approaching. In an instant, she was right in front of him, drawing the sword from her waist. The young man barely had time to react, more stunned by her sudden proximity than the impending attack. Then, before he could even counter, the blade shattered. In the blink of an eye, her sword crumbled into useless shards of metal. Zi Lang's eyes widened, staring in disbelief at the bizarre phenomenon. Her hair whipped backward from the sheer speed of her descent, while Zhang Si stood there, equally puzzled. Landing softly, she broke into a cold sweat, muttering under her breath, "What in the actual hell?" She immediately backed away, maintaining a safe distance. Meanwhile, the female operator on the airship urgently reconnected with Zi Lang through her radio. "Chief, infiltrating alone like this makes it hard for us to provide support. Are you all right?" Though shaken, Zi Lang kept her voice firm. "Do I look like I'm not?" Zhang Si, flustered, raised both hands in an attempt to defuse the situation. I already apologized first. But to her, his words only made him seem even more suspicious. It even knows how to speak like a human? What a freak. If that was the case, she would cut it down properly this time. She unsheathed another sword, this one engraved with blood-red characters along the blade. Running her fingers lightly over its polished surface, she prepared for her finishing blow. Zhang Si tensed, visibly uneasy. I haven't even finished talking. But the chief was already charging toward him. Go talk to the king of hell. With no other choice, Zhang Si hastily leapt out of the way. Zilang's blade slashed through Zhang Si's shadow, missing him by a fraction. Without hesitation, she adjusted her stance, flipping backward to prepare for a surprise counterattack. To Zhang Si, the entire world seemed upside down, except for her. She was the only one staring at him, her eyes filled with killing intent. She spun midair, unleashing a sweeping attack that carved through the entire street. Everything, rocks, streetlights, was sliced apart like paper. Zhang Si simply leaned backward, dodging effortlessly. But Zilang wasn't finished. Her next slash cut straight through multiple skyscrapers, tearing a path through the city. Zhang Si tilted his head, glancing at the sky, looking rather unbothered. His lack of seriousness made Zilang's fury boil over. You dare mock me, you freak? She vanished again in an instant. Meanwhile, the soldiers had reached their wounded ally. Move quickly. Xiao Wu hasn't snapped out of it yet. He was foaming at the mouth, forcing them to fan him desperately to keep him stable. From the airship, a voice rang out. Chief, the civilians have been evacuated. Return now. Repeated attempts to contact her continued. Chief, do you copy? But Zilang was locked in an uneven battle with Zhang Si, their constant movements shifting locations across the city. Zhang Si, on the other hand, seemed to be enjoying himself, jumping from rooftop to rooftop, even striking random hip-hop poses mid-air. Zilang clenched her long sword, veins bulging in frustration. Are you seriously just running around like an idiot? They descended onto a high-rise and slipped into a narrow alley. Zhang Si, free-falling, turned his head innocently. If I don't run, should I just stand there and let you slice me? With that, he rebounded onto a rooftop, kicking off a car to propel himself further. Zilang clicked her tongue, sheathing her sword. This time, she focused entirely, planting her feet firmly on the ground. Dual-stage blade charge. The mechanisms in her lower legs activated, emitting white-hot vapor as all available energy surged into her muscles. The lights on her armor shifted from green to a blazing red. Then, she launched, blasting straight from the rooftop at insane speed. She closed the gap instantly. Zhang Si, still airborne, had no idea what was coming. In mere seconds, she was right behind him, teeth gritted in rage. With everything she had, she slashed down hard, pouring her full strength into the attack. She landed smoothly, while Zhang Si crashed to the ground like a sack of bricks. Tu Lang sheathed her sword and spoke seriously. It's done. She then touched her earpiece to report. Mission accomplished. All right, we're coming down to pick you up, came the response. At the same time, Kiet Min's subordinate also reported to him. Boss Min, they have successfully evacuated all the civilians. A sly smile curled at the corner of Kiet Min's lips. Don't we have a spy among them? Even from a great distance. He gave a simple command. Use it. The evacuated civilians were now cheering in celebration. This is great. The mayor really is incredible. Inside the main cockpit of the airship, an eerie silence filled the space. One of the pilots suddenly noticed his colleague, the mysterious man beside him, lifting the cover of a red button. Without hesitation, he pressed it. The pilot's face turned pale, and he shouted in panic. What are you doing? A massive bomb attached to the airship's body began a countdown, slowly revealing itself. Following the order, it detached and plummeted straight toward the city, its immense weight pulling it downward. On a rescue ship below, people were still laughing and celebrating. I'm so happy. We can finally go home. However, 2 alert pilots had already apprehended the saboteur and quickly reported. Don't celebrate too soon. There's a spy among us. The warhead has already been launched. Everyone immediately froze. As the information sank in, their eyes widened in shock, mouths hanging open in disbelief. Below, Tu Lang also heard the panicked voices from above. Mayor, do you hear us? There's a spy. The warhead has been launched. You need to return now. She looked up at the sky in astonishment. What? A massive warhead? heading straight for the city? The female officer urgently called out to the entire airship. Everyone, brace for impact. Open the cargo bay doors and lower altitude so the mayor can jump in. Tu Lang activated the engine boosters on her legs, but they failed to respond. She looked at the faint smoke rising from them, frowning. What's going on? The crew aboard the airship grew even more frantic. Mayor, why aren't you on board yet? We're running out of time. She wanted to move, but her legs refused. Gritting her teeth, she replied, I can't move my legs. She collapsed onto the ground, her eyes shifting toward Jiang Tu's body, still impaled in the dirt. I used up all my strength earlier to crush that mutant. She desperately tried to remove the malfunctioning device to inspect it, but that only made things worse. Damn it, did I forget to charge it before coming here? Suddenly, her sharp instincts screamed a warning. She immediately turned to look. Zhang Si had appeared out of nowhere, pressing his face close to hers as he observed her intently. The town chief, caught off guard, was helplessly dragged away by him. Zhang Si spun her around on the ground like a rope, making her scream in shock. Then, following the momentum, he hurled her into the air, sending Zilang soaring straight into the sky before she landed precisely on the tail of the ship. Her subordinates rushed over immediately, surrounding her with concern. Are you all right, Chief? Someone asked urgently. Help the chief up, quickly. However, what caught her attention at that moment was not herself but Zhang Si. That bizarre, missile-headed figure was already dangerously close to the city. It was pitch black and terrifyingly massive. Standing below on the street, Zhang Si looked up, deep in thought. Then, furrowing his brows, he lifted one leg, bracing himself. With a heavy stomp, the ground beneath him cracked as he propelled himself into the sky like a vampire in flight. A hot breath escaped his lips, fueling his strength. Nearly all his power was concentrated into this single launch. Meanwhile, the missile continued its natural descent towards the earth, but standing in its path was Zhang Si, straining every muscle as he surged upward from the city. He reached out his bare hand to intercept it, stopping the monstrous projectile midair. His grip crushed more than half of the massive warhead, warping its structure. Everyone aboard the ship, including Zilang, gasped in shock. What? Even Jia Ming and his subordinates watched intently. Their curiosity piqued. Soldiers fanning Xiao Wu and Xiao Xiao also stared in wide-eyed disbelief. Then, a massive explosion erupted above the ground. Its sheer force threatened to obliterate everything in its wake. The deafening blast and overwhelming shockwaves sent Zilang and the others reeling. Even from outer space, the colossal plume of smoke from the explosion was visible. As the destructive event concluded, the town chief stood frozen in disbelief, gazing upward. Flames intertwined with the rising smoke, illuminating an entire section of the city. The old, dilapidated buildings were now reduced to nothing but ash and rubble. She grimaced, overwhelmed by both the shock and a lingering hope for a miracle. Below, the ground was buried in layers of dust and debris. And then, a single, bare foot stepped firmly onto the earth. Zhang Si emerged, his clothes nearly burned away, yet his muscular body remained unscathed. Casually, he scratched his rear and muttered, "Looks like that didn't do much." His nonchalant action stood in stark contrast to the sheer destruction around him. After witnessing everything, Jia Ming turned away and left, muttering, "Time to slip away." However, his subordinates remained fixated on the strange monitor. Their curiosity piqued. "Why is there still movement in the area where the nuclear explosion occurred?" one of them questioned. Dr. Jia Ming, however, showed neither surprise nor much interest. To him, fighting against these extraordinary academy members was nothing new. "This isn't our first time battling them. If we fail this time, there's always another chance," he remarked nonchalantly. Without saying anything further, he simply nodded in acknowledgement and left. Meanwhile, aboard the academy group's helicopter, the entrance had been sealed shut. Zilang sat in a corner, lost in deep contemplation. Her colleagues kept their distance, hesitantly observing their town chief. "What's wrong with her?" someone asked in a suggestive tone before offering an explanation. "Think about it. If you've spent your whole life fighting the undead, but then one ends up saving you, how would you feel?" Just then, a young woman stepped forward, holding a report in her hands. "Chief, I think you're mistaken," she said, handing the document to Zilang. "This person is not undead." The screen displayed a clear image of Zhang Si's face. "You probably haven't been following the news, but he's actually the masked man, a human who enjoys wearing an undead mask." He's been quite active in our society lately. Zilang tightened her grip on the device, causing it to crack under the pressure. The next morning, another seemingly peaceful day arrived. Bathed in the bright sunlight, people out on the streets found themselves frozen in place, once again witnessing something unusual. Wherever that man went, he left shockwaves in his wake, unsettling entire districts. Inside a telephone booth, the man picked up the receiver and spoke. Hello? A highly energetic voice on the other end responded, speaking rapidly. Boss, don't worry, we've successfully evacuated, most people are safe, and we're currently searching for a new place to settle. Zhang Si answered calmly. Got it, once everything is in place, I'll come find you. Outside his apartment complex, the daily rhythm of life continued as usual. Zhang Si returned home, clad in nothing but a tattered pair of pants. Fortunately, no one was around to see him. Muttering under his breath, he entered a passcode on the screen. 7,417,417,474,741. Meanwhile, back at the academy, a new discovery had just been made. A young woman gasped in shock. Chief, you need to see this. Both she and Zilang turned to the screen simultaneously. At that very moment, Zhang Si suddenly stopped in his tracks and turned around, locking eyes with them. The village chief and the young woman were stunned with shock. The young man, completely unaware, entered his house as usual. He turned on a video to motivate himself before lifting weights. Alright, everyone, follow me, raise your hands high, then lift your knees. On his desk, there was a group photo of him with his rowdy juniors. The scene felt warm and lively. Zhang Si smiled to himself and thought, I wonder if everyone has settled in yet? I'll be back soon. Suddenly, Zilang kicked open his door, making him yell out in surprise. She led a group of people dressed in black and immediately ordered them. Go. They spread out and began emptying his house. The kitchen, the bathroom, the bedroom, pots, pans, everything was taken away. His home was being cleaned out right before his eyes. Who are you people? He shouted. Panicked. What are you trying to do? A piece of white paper was shoved in front of him. Zilang stood before him and introduced herself. We are from the Academy of Extraordinary Beings. Congratulations, you have been accepted. She spoke as if she were merely informing him of a fact, not asking for his opinion. Starting today, you are a member of our academy, she added before gesturing at the young man. One of the black-clad individuals stepped forward, grabbed Zhang Si, and pulled him up. Despite his utter confusion, wait, he struggled, but it was useless. What do you want from me? Even zombies go to school now? A human is a human. Why pretend to be a zombie? Take him away. And with that, Zilang took both him and his belongings, leading them all out of the apartment complex. Outside, the commotion drew quite a crowd. Wei Wei, standing next to her, voiced her concern. The academy's selection process is strict. Isn't it risky for us to bring someone in on our own? Besides, academy accommodations are assigned based on labor contributions. If he comes, he won't even have a place to stay. Zilang considered this for a moment, glancing at the team busy loading up his things. Then, she made a decisive choice. He'll stay with me for now. The team of black-clad individuals worked professionally, swiftly moving everything into its new place. Put that in the bedroom, she instructed. By the end of the day, everything was neatly arranged. The team quickly wrapped up and left. Two representatives bowed politely before departing. Now, Zhang Si found himself kneeling before Zilang, wearing only a pair of shorts. Completely at a loss, he was sweating nervously while she observed him in silence for a long while. To break the awkwardness, Zhang Si finally spoke. So, I'm staying here from now on? Where do I sleep? Zilang coldly replied. Where else would you sleep? Her expression darkened as if she were threatening him. What, do you want to sleep with me? The young man panicked, waving his hands frantically in denial. No, I never thought of that. But the thought had already flashed through his mind, making him cry out internally. A zombie sleeping with a human? This world has gone mad. The village chief continued. You'll be staying in the guest room next door. Zhang Si hesitated before lowering his voice and revealing a secret. Actually, you're all wrong. I'm not human. Zilang suddenly reached down, touched her own strange-looking legs, and pulled them up. Out of curiosity, Zhang Si followed her gaze, only to see her completely remove her leg joint, making him jump in shock. Hey, your leg. Zilang did the same with her other leg and responded nonchalantly. I cut them off myself. Got a problem with that? The young man quickly shook his head. No, no problem at all. She frowned slightly, as if reluctant to talk about it, but eventually decided to share her story. The scene shifted to a burning house, engulfed in raging flames. When I was a child, she began, a zombie outbreak hit our village. 2 crazed zombies lunged at her, making her tremble in fear. Her parents had already turned into zombies and bit her legs. Back then, her tiny hands could only grasp a kitchen knife tightly to survive. I didn't just cut off my own legs, she continued, her voice laced with bitter emotion. Tears had streamed down her young face, yet she still forced herself to act. I also had to cut down my zombified parents. As she recounted the memory, her sharp gaze locked onto Zhang-Si. That's why I hate zombies. Whenever I see one, I kill it. Zhang-Si instinctively wanted to say something, but he quickly swallowed his words, too afraid to make a sound. When she finished, she turned to him. Now, what was it you wanted to say earlier? The young man frantically waved his hands. Nothing. I didn't say anything. You must have misheard. Desperate to avoid being skewered on the spot, he swiftly changed the subject. Let's talk about something else. That Academy of Extraordinary Beings you mentioned earlier. What exactly is it? Zi Lang, now back on a familiar topic, softened slightly as she explained. It's an academy specialized in training people to handle zombies. She described the academy as a massive, high-tech institution with elaborate architecture. Since the zombie outbreak, over 1,000 years have passed since the world's apocalypse. 2 centuries after the outbreak, humanity established the academy to ensure survival. The students there? She smirked. They're all either geniuses or monsters. It's a school dedicated to eliminating zombies and training experts in zombie extermination. Hearing Zi Lang's words, Zhang-Si suddenly remembered something. 2 centuries after the zombie outbreak. But I remember when the outbreak first started. I had just turned into a zombie back then. He sat there, frozen. A shocking realization dawned on him. Was he really over 1,000 years old? Zi Lang broke his train of thought. Tomorrow, make sure to register. I'm letting you in through the back entrance. A rebellious thought flickered in his mind. What if I just don't go? But before he could even attempt to act on it, she added firmly, don't even think about running. This isn't an ordinary school. If you register and don't show up, they'll investigate you thoroughly. She moved forward in her wheelchair and continued. Also, my name is Zi Lang. Tomorrow, Wei Wei will take you there. You two have met before. Zhang-Si blinked. We've met before? He searched his memory. Who's Wei Wei? The answer appeared in the form of a girl standing confidently at the academy's entrance. Her 2 high ponytails swayed as she stood tall, exuding an air of unwavering strength. The academy's entrance was massive, with inscriptions carved into the surrounding architecture. Wei Wei greeted him cheerfully. Hey, masked guy, how's it going? Zhang-Si, unimpressed, shot back. Wait, who even are you? She immediately yelled in frustration. We met during the anti-explosion vehicle incident. The memory finally clicked. He pictured it in his mind and muttered. Oh yeah, but I remember you being a tiny little thing back then. Wei Hui's eye twitched. She clenched her fists and repeated a mantra in her head, stay calm. Wei Wei, build good relationships with future classmates. He's an idiot. He's an idiot. Instead of arguing, she turned and walked straight into the academy. Come on, let's go. There's an entrance exam later. Zhang-Si was taken aback. An exam? They stepped into the vast school grounds, where only the 2 of them stood for now. Seizing the moment, he nudged her arm and asked, wait, you need to take a test just to get in? Of course, she replied matter-of-factly. What kind of school doesn't have exams? She explained, they'll train you in basic zombie fighting techniques for a week. Then, you'll have to take a test. She even recalled some specific standards. For example, the world record for a 100-meter sprint is 9.58 seconds. So for you to pass, you'll need to run it in 9.57 seconds. Zhang-Si nodded as if he understood completely. So that's what the Academy of Extraordinary Beings is all about. As they climbed the stairs, Wei Wei suddenly turned to him and asked, so, what do you think? Zhang-Si shrugged and answered honestly. To be honest, I thought this was a mental hospital. Above the white walls, a red banner with bold white letters stood out. Below it, thousands of people had gathered in the courtyard, all summoned for the occasion. Their faces were serious. Some were privileged elites. Others were undisputed geniuses in various fields. As they merged into the crowd, Wei Wei climbed onto Zhang Si's shoulders to get a better view. Damn it, she muttered. I can't see a thing in this crowd. She then turned and snapped at someone nearby. Shut up, trash. Just stay in the back where you belong. With her usual feisty attitude, she immediately shot back at the man who had provoked her. And what's your problem, tough guy? Zhang Si tilted his head and spoke. I don't get it. Back in the human sector, I've lifted airplanes multiple times. Shouldn't I be exempt from this test? Wei Wei patiently explained. You're overthinking it. There are plenty of people here who can lift airplanes. This academy was founded by the government, and its past personnel were top secret. She then added another important detail. Oh, and by the way, people here don't watch the news. At that moment, a figure with only one leg stepped forward. His voice was firm. Silence, all of you. He cleared his throat a few times before taking his place on an elevated platform. His presence commanded immediate attention. Greetings, everyone. I am your examiner for today. You may call me Chief Instructor Chen Shen. As expected, he began with a formal address. It has been 800 years since this academy was founded. Over the centuries, we have trained countless talented individuals. In fact, to defend against the zombie king's assaults, our ancestors even split an entire mountain in half. He wasted no time getting to the point. I do not expect you to surpass the achievements of those who came before you. All I ask is, before he could finish, a voice suddenly called out from the crowd. Instructor Shen. Chief Shen, I have a question. It was Zhang Si, hesitantly raising his hand. What if a zombie manages to infiltrate the academy? What do we do? Chen Shen responded without hesitation. His tone absolute. Obviously, we tear them apart into 8 pieces. Then hang their severed head at the front gate as a warning to everyone. The crowd went silent. He added, and we'd use palace execution methods as well. Zhang Si, still clueless, blinked in confusion. Palace execution? The judge smiled so much that his eyes nearly disappeared before speaking bluntly. Cut that little bird. In Zhang Si's mind, he imagined a banana being sliced off, making him wince and turn pale. After a brief speech, the sky remained clear with the bright morning sun shining overhead. The referee stood to the side, signaling for the 100-meter sprint to begin. Although Zhang Si was still somewhat flustered, he got into position like everyone else. The starter pistol fired, and as soon as the referee's voice faded, a group of students dashed forward, creating a gust of wind that nearly swept him off his feet. Among them, one outstanding individual even surpassed Zhang Si, confidently taking the lead. The crowd circled the schoolyard for dozens of laps until a command rang out. Wu Shenshu, 100 meters. 3 seconds. Valid. The young man immediately came to a sudden stop upon achieving his goal. Zhang Si, still running, watched in amazement. Meanwhile, the students prepared numerous scarecrows for the next round. Next event, shooting. Standing behind Zhang Si, Chen Shen raised his voice. Shooting is the most basic skill for fighting zombies. Learn it well, and you'll feast on zombies. Learn it poorly, and the zombies will feast on you. Simple as that. Zhang Si felt uneasy as he was swept into these relentless events. I was suddenly dragged to this school to learn how to fight zombies. Every day, aside from zombie theory lessons, there are all kinds of training sessions. Beside him, a fair-skinned, petite arm lifted a revolver. Without hesitation, Xiao Xiao blindfolded herself and fired multiple shots. Bullets whizzed through the air, striking the scarecrows with precision, taking out all their heads. Pleased with herself, she pulled off the blindfold with a satisfied smile. Xiao Xiao, shooting test passed. Zhang Si was left gaping in astonishment. Meanwhile, a lunatic next to him clutched a scarecrow's body and roared, sweat dripping down Zhang Si's back under the blazing sun. Next event, weight throwing. Some students strained to lift the weights, while others remained relaxed. 80 meters is the minimum passing mark. Anything above 100 meters is valid. One by one, the students hurled their weights, some managing to pass the white boundary line in the distance while others failed. 20 meters. Valid. Yi, disqualified. Chen Shen's voice boomed. Next group. Zhang Si tried his best to act normal as he ran down the track. And so, I ended up in this place full of lunatics. To avoid drawing too much attention, I must control my strength as best as I can. Judge Chen Shen kept watching him closely, never taking his eyes off him. He held a sheet of information in his hand. Zhang Si. Height. 1.82 meters. Weight. 72 kilograms. 100-meter sprint. 9.57 seconds. All his results were just at the passing standard. But the leader of the Blade Group, Z Lang, claimed that he was extremely strong. Chen Shen looked up again, suspicion in his eyes. Could that guy be playing tricks on me? The sky remained clear and blue as the preparations continued. The next participant leaned back, gathering momentum for his javelin throw. With a powerful motion, he launched it high into the air. The sharp javelin whistled through the sky, heading straight for its target. It pierced through a scarecrow, dragging it along with its force. Zhang Si was startled and surprised. The javelin had already skewered 3 or 4 scarecrows, yet its momentum remained unstoppable. It shot directly into a signboard on the street. Bystanders glanced up in confusion. Chen Shen checked his stopwatch and announced, 32 kilometers, precise target hit. The thrower walked back to the gathering area, while Zhang Si stepped forward. Wu Shenshu, javelin throw, valid. The next participant was called. Wu Shenshu glanced at Zhang Si with an arrogant smirk before stepping aside. Zhang Si picked up his javelin, tilting his body backward just like the others had done. But this time, Chen Shen suddenly shouted, "Wait!" The sharpness in his voice made the surrounding trainees turn to look. He walked up to Zhang Si and confronted him directly. "Your name is Zhang Si, right? The leader of the Blade Group, Z Lang, recommended you?" He held up a thin screen displaying Zhang Si's data and questioned him. "She said you're very strong, but your performance is just barely passing. Do you truly have that strength? Or are you messing with me?" The crowd's curiosity grew as their gazes locked onto Zhang Si. Suddenly, Chen Shen brought up an earlier incident, making Zhang Si flinch. "The one who questioned me before, that was you, wasn't it? Everyone here is desperate to showcase their full strength." Chen Shen leaned in, his face inches away from Zhang Si, and whispered in a chilling tone, "Are you a zombie?" A shiver ran down Zhang Si's spine. Panicked, he flailed his arms, shaking his head wildly. No, I'm human. Chen Shen casually tossed the thin screen at Zhang Si. "Good, then I want to see all your strength." He returned to his seat and spoke in a stern voice. "I'm not asking you to throw 32 kilometers like the guy before you. But if you can't even surpass **3 kilometers, just 1/10 of his throw, your result won't count." His eyes were fierce as he warned Zhang Si, emphasizing each word. "If you don't meet that mark, it means you're weak. If you're weak but manage to deceive the Blade Group leader, I'll have to consider you a spy and send you for interrogation." Zhang Si fell silent, not daring to make a sound. Yet his mind was flooded with countless arguments. Although there were many things he could no longer remember, he was certain that the people who had hunted him down long ago were from this very academy. He didn't want to become an oil lamp, nor did he wish to turn into a perpetual motion machine. Zhang Si thought nonchalantly, just throw it as far as possible. He quickly pondered why he was still alive today, while Wu Shen stood with arms crossed, waiting for the person he had just looked down upon to act. Xiao Xiao also focused intently on him. Zhang Si took a deep breath, gently raising the sharp javelin. He parted his lips, inhaling deeply, recalling the countless hours he had struggled through intense training. The memory fueled his determination. His eyes burned like flames as fragments of his past, his frail and skeletal self, came rushing back. Now, with a single step, he could crack the very ground beneath him. The surroundings blurred due to his rapid movements. Wu Shen, who had moments ago carried a cool and arrogant demeanor, was now utterly shaken. Zhang Si unleashed his full strength, hurling the javelin with all his might. The spear shot straight into space, piercing through a cluster of satellites, continuing its flight at the speed of light, shattering several more before finally landing on the moon's surface. The students nearby were swept off their feet as if struck by a massive storm. Yet, Zhang Si remained standing, even as the ground behind him was completely torn apart. Chen Shen gaped in disbelief, blurting out, "Holy hell!" The moon, silent as ever, continued its orbit. However, at its center, a bright light suddenly flashed. A massive, circular hole had been carved through. Through it, a small image of Earth could be seen. Zhang Si's eyes still burned with an unyielding spirit. His muscles tensed, stretching his already tight shirt to its limit. Some unfortunate souls, who had been flung high into the air, now began plummeting back down. His body was still slightly inclined forward, shrouded in white mist. Slowly, he lifted his gaze towards the sky, meeting the moon's unmoving stare. as if it were questioning him. It took a while before the young man finally calmed down. Standing there in a daze, staring blankly ahead, Chen Shen and the others were still in shock as they stared at Zhang Si. Xiao Xiao, bursting with excitement, ran up to him. Did you see that? Even the grand instructor was stunned just now. Wow, you're incredible, she eagerly asked. How far did you throw it? Zhang Si scratched his head and replied, I don't know either. I just threw it randomly into the sky. Meanwhile, out in space, the meteor fragments that had broken off from the moon were still floating aimlessly. The hole on the moon would likely never fully heal, leaving a permanent gap through which Earth could be seen. Zhang Si picked up the information sheet in front of him and asked, The exam is over, right? Can I go home now? Xiao Xiao was dumbfounded. Go home? Are you kidding? From now on, you've already become the right-hand man of the squad leader. She exaggerated her words by dramatically spreading her arms and legs. Do you have any idea how much power the squad leader holds? Zhang Si, of course, had no clue, so a question mark practically appeared above his head. Seeing his confusion, Xiao Xiao began boasting about the fearsome reputation of Zi Lang. Take Zi Lang, the leader of the Blade Squad. For example, she doesn't just command an entire army, she can also use tanks, fighter jets, and artillery at will. She even has the authority to deploy nuclear warheads. At that moment, the real Zi Lang was sitting by a window, calmly gazing out over the city. A metropolis of 35 million people was under her management. Even the so-called city mayor was just a figurehead, a mere tool for handling day-to-day affairs. The real ruler of the city was her. Zhang Si wasn't particularly surprised after hearing all this. All right, I have my own city anyway, he said nonchalantly. Shifting the topic, they soon moved to a different location, inside the biotech division. Around them, test tubes and vials filled with strange chemicals covered the tables. Where is this place? Zhang Si asked. Xiao Xiao, as energetic as ever, enthusiastically introduced. This is the biotechnology division. It specializes in developing weapons for us. You could also think of it as the logistics department. Zhang Si's gaze drifted to his side, where he noticed a photo of a happy family sitting on the table. This is Dr. Kiet Min. We all call him the Minister of Logistics. He used to be the head of the biotechnology division. Their attention shifted to the man with the thick glasses in the photo. After his wife passed away, he became obsessed with fulfilling her last wish. He plunged himself into illegal human and zombie experiments, so much so that his research reached a terrifyingly twisted level. In the end, the Academy blacklisted and put a bounty on him. The order was clear: if found, he was to be executed on sight. Inside the technology lab, another girl was present. Hey, you two, doing well? A new classmate? She asked. Xiao Xiao, did you pass the exam? Xiao Xiao responded with a bright smile. That's right. Zhang Si, unfamiliar with everyone here, was curious about her identity. Xiao Xiao, always quick to answer, explained. She was an orphan raised by Dr. Kiet Min. Now, she represents the squad leader. The girl pulled out a chair and sat at her workstation. All right, what kind of equipment do you need? Xiao Xiao excitedly exclaimed. I need a suit that can carry more weapons. Her mind was already visualizing an absurd mechanism, preferably one that can hold a Gatling gun between my legs. The professor accepted her request without question. Looks like Xiao Xiao is joining the firearms division. Of course, I enrolled in this academy because I followed the call of my heart, she declared dramatically. The other girl remained silent for a moment, waiting for Zhang Si. He stepped forward and pointed at himself. Me? The moment she saw him, she screamed so loudly that her glasses nearly flew off. Oh my god, a zombie! Xiao Xiao gave an awkward chuckle and quickly explained on his behalf. You got it wrong. He's not a zombie. He's just wearing a zombie mask. The professor immediately shouted at the girl. Do you think I'm stupid? Or do your eyes grow on your eyebrows? That's clearly a zombie. Xiao Xiao's eyes gleamed with conviction. I swear, I'm not lying. I even saw his real face just now. The professor, trembling, put on her glasses. Really? Fine, I'll trust Xiao Xiao this time. Zhang Si stood completely still, like a statue. After composing herself, the professor calmly asked, what are your weapon preferences? He cheerfully replied, I don't have any specific requests. But every time I come back from a mission, I end up completely naked. If there's a suit that can't be destroyed, that would be great. Hearing this, the professor's ears buzzed in confusion. Nonetheless, She opened her computer screen to begin processing their requests. So, one wants to carry more weapons. And the other doesn't want to end up naked. Got it. Above the sliding door, a wooden sign clearly displayed the words Sword Society. Meanwhile, Xiao Wu, still shirtless, sat motionless and upright in his seat. Across from him, a girl exuded an air of absolute tranquility. Xiao Wu began recounting his past. He's terrifyingly strong. He recalled the moment when he threw his spear. The moment I charged at him. My vision went black. I was out for an entire day. And then, when I woke up, I found myself hanging like a ragged piece of clothing on an electric pole. The girl picked up the book resting on her face. Your team leader lost. Huh? Xiao Wu was anxious. He had a bad feeling. Perhaps our team leader is no match for him. The girl then stood up and placed her notebook on the table. She walked straight toward Xiao Wu. Her beautiful and alluring face leaned in close to him as she asked, "Tell me, what is his name?" Lan Qi remained silent and gave a gentle smile, making Xiao Wu's face flush red. Then, she turned around and walked away. "Let him go," she said. The mysterious and powerful girl was the leader of the sword group. Lan Qi's relationship with Zi Lang was not particularly good. They were longtime rivals. As Zi Lang was the leader of the Blade group, both sides would go to any lengths to recruit people to their cause. The main reason for this fierce competition was that the city controlled by the Blade group always had one more resident than the city managed by the Sword group. Because of that single person, the Sword group's leader was furious to the point of wanting to create one themselves. Meanwhile, Xiao Wu quickly packed his things and left, silently offering his blessings to someone. Good luck, Zhang Si. The academy's classes had already started. As the sunlight outside grew harsher, the teacher tapped his pointer against the blackboard. When capturing zombies alive, aside from human flesh, they also have a strong preference for chicken eggs. The key is to exploit their cravings and their weak spots, especially their heads, to set effective traps. Zhang Si diligently took notes on everything. Curious, Xiao Xiao leaned over to glance at him. "What are you doing?" The young man continued writing as he replied, "I'm copying everything down so I can tell my family later." She raised an eyebrow, puzzled by his response. "Your family?" Just then, the school's announcement system crackled to life, interrupting the lesson. "Attention all students." Everyone instinctively looked up at the ceiling and listened. "Freshmen, please assemble at the stadium immediately. I repeat, all freshmen, report to the stadium now." Xiao Xiao blinked in surprise. "Didn't we already gather before?" Regardless, the students in the room quickly moved toward the stadium. Inside the vast open area, a large group had already formed as students crowded together. Zhang Si and Xiao Xiao strolled through the crowd, each holding an ice cream cone. "What do you think they're planning now?" Zi Lang suddenly stepped in front of them and warned, "Stay quiet, you two were introduced by me. So don't cause me any trouble. This is a very important conference." The lively girl, Xiao Xiao, suddenly turned and asked, "Zhang Si, how can you still eat and drink while wearing a mask?" As he panicked, trying to explain, someone not far from them was observing him closely. Lan Qi was watching him intently. Meanwhile, the person next to her voiced their thoughts. "So he's the team leader? He doesn't seem very smart. He doesn't look that powerful either." Despite the remark, Lan Qi's interest remained undiminished. She gave an order. "You step back first. I'm going to say hello to him." The other person bowed slightly and replied, "Understood." At that moment, the doors of the arena opened to welcome the final entrant. Inside, a man walked alone at the front, followed closely by numerous figures. As they emerged, it became clear that these figures were modern machines. Among them, the one in the center appeared more human than the rest. The students instinctively bowed in respect. Xiao Xiao grabbed Zhang Si's head and pulled him down, whispering, "What are you doing? Bow quickly." That's the leader of the mechanical life group. The group passed through the crowd, brushing past the two new students. The commander-in-chief glanced at Lan Qi with clear displeasure. "What are you doing here? Don't cause me trouble." She responded in a friendly manner. "Relax, I'll be gone soon." However, her subordinate was puzzled. "Leader, Zhang Si is right here. Why not meet him now? What if he runs away?" Lan Qi raised an eyebrow. Compared to Zhang Si, the commander-in-chief is still more important. "I only respect the strong." The commander-in-chief placed a hand on Zilang's shoulder and commended her. "You've worked hard." She nodded. "It's my duty." Meanwhile, Zhang Si stared at his melting ice cream and muttered, "This feels strange." Isn't Zi Lang from the Blade Group? What's going on with her and him? Xiao Xiao immediately caught on and teased. Are you jealous? But Zhang Si, still oblivious, replied innocently, I'm eating eggs. At that moment, he had completely forgotten what Xiao Xiao had previously told him. Is the commander-in-chief really that powerful? He asked. Patiently, she explained again. Do you remember the photo you saw before? The commander-in-chief was never an ordinary human. He is the last surviving subject from the research conducted by Dr. Kiet Men of the Biological Science Group. Out of countless test subjects, only he survived. The modern cityscape around us was all built by him. After Dr. Kiet Men was declared a fugitive, the commander-in-chief founded the Mechanical Life Group through sheer strength. Under his leadership, the population of his city has grown to 50 million. The people live in peace and stability under his protection. In the past 10 years, not a single zombie has been seen within his city. Even if just a strand of zombie hair appeared, he would wipe it out completely. Zhang Si was so stunned that he turned to stone, unable to utter another word. Standing on the high podium, the commander-in-chief spoke down to the crowd. I'll keep this brief. Although you are only first-year students, you are all elites in your respective fields. There is something I need your help with. The crowd quieted down, and everyone listened attentively. Once everything settled, he signaled the robot beside him to display the image. The robot's eye emitted a red beam, projecting an image onto the screen behind the commander-in-chief. A familiar face appeared. The man in the image was bruised and battered from a severe beating. This is the spy we captured a few months ago. He illegally launched a nuclear warhead, nearly killing one of our team leaders. Zhang Si immediately reacted in shock. He's the one who launched the nuke at me. Around him, murmurs erupted. A guy like that deserves to be skinned alive. According to reliable sources, the commander continued, he is an important confidant of Dr. Kiet Men, the leader of the Biological Science Group. His zombies go completely out of control the moment they see a human. Only now did Zhang Si realize something. So the zombie apocalypse is already over. You were just fighting each other this whole time. Xiao Xiao nodded in agreement. That's right. She then sighed in exasperation. Too much power. Too much greed. The commander-in-chief resumed his speech. We have tried countless times to make him reveal Dr. Kiet Min's hiding place. But he won't talk. Students from grade 2 to grade 5 have all tried interrogating him. But nothing has worked. We've used everything, whipping, tiger bench, electroshock, even arch torture. He's been completely broken, yet he still refuses to speak. With an icy expression, the commander declared, we've tried everything, but he won't crack. I trust that all of you are talented individuals from different regions. Whoever can get him to reveal Dr. Kiet Min's location. He casually slid his hands into his pockets, exuding an air of absolute confidence. I will immediately promote them to vice leader. A wave of astonished gasps spread through the students. What, a first-year student becoming a vice leader? That's an insane opportunity. Countless hands shot into the air. Me, I'll do it. I volunteer. The commander smirked and motioned toward a passage leading deeper inside. The secret interrogation room is in the back. Good luck. The sky outside remained silent, with barely any clouds in sight. Time passed quickly, and soon, 2 hours had gone by. At this moment, a muscular man was still struggling to resist. After 2 arduous hours of confrontation, the first-year students had exhausted all their tactics. What started as standard interrogation techniques gradually escalated beyond limits. Some even resorted to using incense to offer prayers for the spy, while others struck gongs right beside his ears, nearly rupturing his eardrums. A monk even set up a prayer table and continuously knocked on a wooden fish, hoping to enlighten him. Zi Lang held his head in utter embarrassment as he watched the bizarre scene unfold. Meanwhile, Xiao Xiao did not participate but merely observed Zhang Si from the sidelines. Can you make him confess? She asked. The person beside her replied with absolute certainty. I can. Xiao Xiao was astonished. Really? She exclaimed before eagerly raising her hand high to draw everyone's attention. Over here, my friend can make him talk. The headmaster turned his gaze toward them and said, all right, invite the student over. Zhang Si stepped forward, while Xiao Xiao found it strange. Wasn't he someone who preferred to stay low-key? Why was he stepping up this time? As he walked past, his eyes locked onto Lan Qi and her subordinates, closely observing them. Within Zhang Si's mind, doubts lingered. The undead under his command were always obedient, yet they tended to lose control. Perhaps this human spy knew something useful. He pushed open the interrogation room door and entered. The spy, his face bruised and battered, remained defiant. He didn't even bother to look at Zhang Si, turning his head away dismissively. Zhang Si stood above him, silently watching. The spy scoffed in boredom. Is your academy out of people? You keep sending these nobodies to deal with me. Just give up. I won't betray Brother Ming. Without warning, Zhang Si swiftly flicked his hand at the spy. A thin cut appeared on the man's skinny arm, and a trickle of red blood oozed out. The spy, confused, stared at his wound before suddenly laughing as if it were a joke. Are you seriously trying to torture me? Come on, put in some real effort. A tiny cut like this? It's no different from a mosquito bite. Zhang Si didn't bother to argue. Instead, he gave a simple order. Stand up. To everyone's shock, the spy actually obeyed, forcing himself to sit upright as if compelled by some invisible force. Zi Lang, Xiao Xiao, and even the headmaster were stunned. The wound on the spy's arm, still stained with fresh blood, stood out vividly against his skin. The closer they looked, the more unsettling the scene became. The viruses implanted by Zhang Si had begun to merge with the spy's bloodstream. They grew and multiplied rapidly, spreading throughout his circulatory system. Soon, his brain also started changing color as it became infected. For a brief moment, his face froze. Only then did Zhang Si begin his interrogation. What's your name? The spy, still in a daze, responded blankly. My name is Xiao Kai. Xiao Xiao gasped loudly, unable to contain her shock. Leader, he can control a person's thoughts, she exclaimed. Zhang Si stared at Xiao Kai and continued. You're the trusted aide of that scientist. Jet Ming, aren't you? You know everything, don't you? Like an obedient dog, the spy immediately replied. Yes, I know most of what's going on. Then let's get to the main question. Zhang Si said. The undead in the city were always well behaved before. Why did they suddenly lose control? The spy revealed everything without hesitation. It's because Ming spread a special drug across the city. When the undead smell it, they immediately become aggressive. Not only that, but they can also be controlled. The ordinary undead knew nothing about this drug. He continued. At first, they just stared blankly at the others. But soon, they transformed into unusually large and violent monsters. We commanded them to attack humans to collect combat data on the extraordinary ones. Zhang Si fell silent for a moment, then asked, Why are you people doing this? Xiao Kai revealed Jet Ming's true intentions. I don't know everything, but Ming told me he's working on something great. He said we needed to manipulate the undead to massacre humans in order to gather battle data on the extraordinary ones. Lan Qi and the young man beside her widened their eyes in disbelief as they listened to the conversation. Where is Jet Ming now? Zhang Si asked. He's hiding 500 meters underground in the ruins of City H. Xiao Kai answered. After gathering all the information he needed, Zhang Si issued his final command. Turn around. The words that followed were spoken in the language of the undead, resonating deep within Xiao Kai's mind. You people are truly disgusting. Zhang Si said coldly. I've already implanted a suicide virus into your brain. Take care of it yourself. Xiao Kai, completely under Zhang Si's control, obediently accepted his fate. Meanwhile, 500 meters underground in the ruins of City H, Jet Ming sat in his hidden laboratory. His top subordinate, a man with a shaved head and round glasses, turned to him with a report. Sir, based on reliable intelligence, the spy has confessed. Our location has likely been exposed. Dressed sloppily, Jet Ming crossed his arms and remained deep in thought. But instead of showing panic, he simply replied, It doesn't matter. Just do what needs to be done. Let them come to us, it might even be better that way. Kiet Min turned around to glance at the faint blue light behind him. His subordinates were worried. But, sir, you'll be in danger. Those people are not ordinary. It's fine. The experiment is almost complete anyway, he said with satisfaction as he admired the massive test tube in front of him. Inside, something resembling a human brain floated in the liquid. Perfect timing. Let them witness this historic moment, the birth of an entirely new species. Meanwhile, Zhang Si finished his task and stepped outside. The students looked at him with a mix of fear and unease. Wherever he walked, they instinctively backed away, creating an empty space around him. Their murmurs filled the air, isolating him further. Even Zilang hesitated to approach and instead chose to observe from a distance. Every few minutes, Lan Chi curled his lips into an amused smirk. Then, a trembling voice whispered among the students. He can control human thoughts. A round of applause suddenly broke the tension. Well done, a deep voice praised. The chief remained composed as he acknowledged Zhang Si. A first-year student, yet full of potential. Truly, a hidden gem among dragons and tigers. Then, he gestured for Zhang Si to follow. The vice leader position I promised you, I'll keep my word. Come with me to register. Zhang Si blinked in confusion. But what about Dr. Kiet Min? There's no rush. We're looking for him as well. The chief replied. From a distance, Lan Chi frowned as he watched them leave. The mysterious mechanical beings also followed the chief outside. Adding to the enigma of the situation, Lan Chi's subordinate, puzzled, asked, Strange, since when did registering for a vice leader position require all this secrecy? She found it odd as well and quickly ordered him to follow and investigate. Outside an abandoned factory in the outskirts, the sky poured down a cold, sorrowful rain. They moved through the drenched streets, the sound of raindrops echoing around them. Zhang Si gradually felt something was off. As the rain soaked through his clothes, he hesitated, glancing around before questioning the person ahead of him. Where is this place? Didn't you say we were going to register? And then find Dr. Kiet Min? The chief suddenly stopped walking. After a brief silence, he asked in a chilling voice. Since when did a corpse like you learn to speak like a human? Zhang Si instinctively pointed at himself. Are you talking to me? Without warning, the chief spun around, gun raised and ready. I'm talking to you. A gunshot exploded in the night. A blinding spark flared as the bullet pierced straight through Zhang Si's head. Lan Chi's subordinate immediately grabbed her and pulled her down. Captain, be careful. The young man was both startled and worried about Lan Chi. Captain, are you all right? She carefully looked up. Me? What could possibly happen to me? That was the chief's death cannon. Heated to 10,000 degrees. It can melt through any material. After firing the shot, the chief's gun emitted a thin wisp of white smoke. They're fools. But me? I'm not. With a swift motion, he transformed his weapon into a hand and muttered. Academy sentries, what are they even doing? Something strange has infiltrated, and they don't even realize it. Zhang Si stood in the middle of the barren ground, his upper body completely charred. The weakness of a corpse lies in the head. Destroy it, and it loses the ability to move. The chief, still composed, even spoke politely. Sorry, corpse, this isn't a place for you. But a second later, a hand suddenly shot toward him. The movement was fluid, shifting from one point to another, dragging the chief's entire body along. With a thunderous crash, he slammed into a building at the end of the street. He was still in shock, unable to grasp what had just happened, when something tightened around his throat. The robots accompanying him immediately responded, unleashing another round of scorching artillery fire at the enemy. Explosions erupted, shaking the ground, yet not a single shot landed on Zhang Si. Instead, he effortlessly caught one of the machines. Through the thick smoke, a shadow emerged. The chief slid backward across the ground. Regaining his balance, gritting his teeth, he stared ahead in disbelief. What the hell? Amidst the swirling mist, the silhouette of a man became clearer. Zhang Si, using both hands, had utterly dismantled his robots, turning them into a pile of scrap. Is that even possible? He still had no head. And yet, his hand was firmly gripping the head of a destroyed robot. Lan Chi's subordinate gawked in utter shock. No way. Then, Zhang Si lunged forward, extending his hand. The chief barely managed to tilt his head, dodging the strike, but Zhang Si swung his other arm immediately after, forcing him to retreat further. Reacting swiftly, the chief transformed his arm into a firearm and fired a devastating energy blast. Zhang Si, however, dodged by simply lowering his stance. The chief gasped in astonishment. What? How? How can he move like that without a head? As confusion clouded his thoughts, Zhang Si launched another series of relentless kicks, driving him back. Once again, they separated, with the chief leaping backward to create distance. Lan Chi's subordinate grew anxious, fearing the chief might be in trouble. But she remained composed and said firmly, "He's getting serious now." The chief's face darkened, exuding an ominous presence. His techniques are all brute force. Let's keep our distance so we don't get caught in the crossfire. Meanwhile, on the other side, Zhang Si was regenerating. A new layer of skin slowly formed over his head, reconstructing his face piece by piece. Once he could see again, He let out a relieved sigh. The young subordinate watching the scene was even more startled than his captain. Look, his head, it grew back. Zhang Si, however, remained patient as he spoke to the chief once more. Let's talk. I don't want to hurt you. The chief narrowed his eyes with contempt, gripping the edge of his cloak. You think you can control my mind? Without hesitation, he tossed his cloak aside. Too bad for you. With a loud command, he summoned a squad of advanced combat robots. Prototype Unit 1. Deploy from all directions. The machines soared through the air, descending upon their location. As they landed, they crashed into the chief himself, producing a series of loud, metallic impacts. Zhang Si watched curiously, waiting for the dust to settle. Lam Qi and her subordinate had already moved to a higher, safer vantage point to observe the fight. When the smoke finally cleared, the chief's body had undergone a complete transformation. Now fully mechanized, he smirked and declared, I am a machine. With his new enhancements in place, he charged forward with confidence. I never negotiate with the undead. His first strike was a powerful knee to Zhang Si's chin. You should feel honored to witness my true form. The force of the attack sent Zhang Si hurtling backward. The chief immediately followed up, closing the distance in an instant. Zhang Si spun in midair, while the chief crouched low, gathering momentum. Then, with a forceful punch to the gut, he sent Zhang Si soaring even higher. Lam Qi and her subordinate could only watch in stunned silence, unable to process the sheer intensity of the battle. The chief leapt into the air, catching up to Zhang Si and unleashing a relentless barrage of rapid punches. The blows sent them ricocheting across the sky. Zhang Si didn't fight back. He simply took every hit. After pummeling him for a while, the chief switched tactics. Grabbing hold of Zhang Si, he rocketed toward the ground, preparing for the finishing move. Zhang Si's body smashed into the concrete, bouncing off like a rag doll. The chief landed directly on him, driving him even deeper into the earth. The red visor of the chief glowed intensely. Zhang Si crossed his arms over his chest. Die. His body began to swell as energy built up inside him. Then, with a powerful surge, he unleashed his strongest death cannon from the center of his chest. Lam Qi's eyes widened in shock at its sheer force. The blast grew larger and larger, obliterating everything in its path. Steel fragments, streetlights, everything was blown away. The air before him was now a blinding white void, almost everything erased. Panting heavily, the chief muttered to himself. This time, he has to be dead, right? But then, a firm and steady footstep echoed through the silence. His breath caught in his throat. Slowly, he lifted his gaze, only to see Zhang Si standing there. Zhang Si leaned his head back toward the sky, then let out a deafening roar. The entire area trembled from the sheer force of his voice. Lam Qi and her subordinate clutched their heads, unable to keep their eyes open. What is he doing now? Even the chief was affected, his visor cracking under the pressure. Zhang Si's face shifted, his expression became even more unhinged, yet at the same time, more human. The two onlookers noticed something strange. What is happening? Zhang Si slowly turned his gaze behind him. The chief began to tremble. What is this thing? Zhang Si had grown taller, his figure now resembling that of a fully matured man. The aura around him had completely changed. Above them, a massive vortex formed in the sky. As dark clouds gathered into a spiraling storm, Zhang Si stood motionless in the ruins, unfazed. Above the city, the sky darkened as thick storm clouds twisted into a black tornado, swallowing the sun. From the window of a nearby building, Xiao Xiao gasped. Everyone, look over there. What's happening to the sky? Lam Qi and her subordinate panicked as well. Captain, this is bad. Inside the city, people stepped out onto the streets, looking up in concern. What's going on? I've never seen clouds take on that shape before. The chief remained at a distance, cautiously waiting for Zhang Si's next move. Gritting his teeth, he growled, You damn monster? I gave you a chance to negotiate before. Before he could finish processing the situation, Zhang Si's eerie voice interrupted. Now tell me. A smirk crept onto his lips. How do you want to die? Lam Qi's subordinate screamed. His personality just switched. He's going after him. Realizing the danger, Lam Qi turned sharply. No, this is bad. Without hesitation, she and her subordinate jumped to a higher vantage point. Don't stand there explaining. Run. Get out of here. Now. The chief minister mumbled to himself. I've lived this long, Yet no creature has ever made me feel the presence of death." He then shouted, "What the hell are you?" His voice rang out as if to assert dominance before he turned to Zhang Si and proposed, "Let's have our undead battle against each other." At that moment, the two others were leaping across rooftops, heading toward a safe shelter. The young man was still in shock. "I've read every history book in the academy, but I've never seen this type of undead before." Lam Chi shared the same sentiment. "I've never seen one either," he admitted, feeling somewhat relieved. "We've run this far, we should be safe now, right?" Just as he finished speaking, a bright beam of light shot past them, nearly reducing them to ashes. Both of them, still suspended midair, were filled with horror. The battle had escalated to a new level. The chief minister, now with all four limbs broken, was pinned against a wall. Zhang Si stood before him, calm and composed, with the last ounce of his strength. The chief minister called out, "Number 2, number 3, number 4. Instantly, a group of robots leapt in from all directions. But Zhang Si simply raised a hand. A massive explosion erupted on the rooftop, illuminating the entire district in a fiery glow. The three of them tumbled across a rooftop like rolling balls, coughing heavily. Even in his near-defeated state, the chief minister gritted his teeth and muttered to Lam Chi, "Everyone has a responsibility to deal with the undead." She snapped back, "Like hell we do. You're the one who provoked it first." The two of them soared into the air, splitting in different directions. Meanwhile, Zhang Si remained on the ground, seemingly waiting for something. Suddenly, he crouched down and raised one hand high. Lam Chi's instincts flared with unease. Her gut feeling told her something was wrong. And she was right. Zhang Si plunged his entire arm into the earth. The entire city trembled with a massive shockwave. As Lam Chi glided across the streets, she noticed something strange. She was getting closer and closer to the ground. A chill ran down her spine as she spun around. "What is he trying to do?" she gasped in fear. With sheer force, Zhang Si lifted an entire section of the city's foundation with just one hand. The chief minister, still midair, suddenly slammed into a newly formed flat surface. More than half the city had been uprooted and raised into a towering wall. The fishermen from the remaining districts stood frozen, mouths agape at the unbelievable sight. "What in the world just happened?" someone cried out in sheer disbelief. Xiao Xiao was so shocked that she couldn't utter a word. The entire district had been overturned before her eyes, with massive chunks of the city rising into the air. Amid the chaos, Zhang Si stood motionless, unfazed by what he had just done. Then, without warning, he shot forward at an incredible speed, reaching out to grab someone. The chief minister was slammed against the wall by Zhang Si's powerful arm. Water surged up from the ground, streaming all the way to the top of the uprooted landmass. Zhang Si flashed a satisfied smile. Holding the chief minister firmly in his grasp, he stood above and asked, "Can you feel it now?" The absolute power. The android trapped in his hand struggled in vain. Zhang Si smirked and mocked him. "You were right. Your body is indeed difficult to control." The chief minister grimaced as Zhang Si tightened his grip. "But since you have consciousness, you must have a brain, right?" A pained groan escaped from the chief minister as Zhang Si's virus seeped into his bloodstream. Slowly, it spread through his brain, unraveling his memories. Zhang Si observed them one by one. Two shadowy figures emerged, both lying lifeless in a pool of blood. His parents had died early. Then, the scene shifted. A doctor stood before him, methodically modifying his body. With one hand, the doctor cut him open. With the other, he installed cold metal parts. There was not a single part of him that remained human. Zhang Si looked unimpressed. "A life like this is even more meaningless than that of the undead," he murmured. "Living in pain is worse than dying." With that, he let go, allowing the chief minister's body to plummet. "Consider this a mercy." From below, Lam Chi swiftly grabbed onto a street lamp, lunging forward to catch the chief minister. She looked up, shocked. "He can even read memories?" Before she could process it further, Zhang Si had already disappeared. The sky returned to darkness, with a crescent moon casting its pale glow over the ruined city. Meanwhile, Zhang Si hurriedly packed his belongings into a suitcase. Damn it, I've been exposed. I lost control again." Even he was terrified of what had just happened. "I've turned into something horrifying. But I'm a kind undead, right?" Without another moment's hesitation, he grabbed his luggage and rushed out the door. "Goodbye, humans." As soon as he stepped into the hallway, a familiar voice called out, "Where do you think you're going?" Zhang Si froze, his body tensing with worry. What now? He didn't want to silence anyone. But if there was no other way, he clenched his fists, ready to strike. Sorry, he muttered under his breath. But just as he turned around, a piece of paper was suddenly held out in front of him. Zi Lang held Zhang Si's official document in his hand and said, Deputy Chief Zhang, your paperwork is ready. As of today, you are officially the Deputy Chief of the Academy of the Extraordinary. Zhang Si stood there, bewildered, staring at the paper in his hands. Huh? He even asked again, did the Chief Minister approve this? Zi Lang simply turned his back and walked away. Yes. Still confused, Zhang Si muttered. He didn't say anything? Zi Lang stopped briefly, glanced at him, and replied. He said, you are human. Then she quickly pushed open the door and stepped inside. Do your best. If you can become a team leader, then in the future, you can do whatever you want. Meanwhile, the Chief Minister was recovering at his residence. Lam Chi was by his side, tending to his wounds, but she couldn't stop scolding him after hearing his decision. What, you still plan on using him? Do you not realize that he's an undead? The Chief Minister's entire body was wrapped in bandages, leaving him barely able to respond. With a hoarse voice, he murmured, does it matter whether he's undead or human? If we want to capture Dr. Kiet Men, we need his power. Lam Chi remained cautious, reminding him, Zhang Si is extremely dangerous when he loses control of his emotions. But the Chief Minister remained calm as usual. It's fine. How are the preparations going? She reported everything had been arranged. The Chief Minister narrowed his eyes, filled with determination. This time, we must deal with Dr. Kiet Men. Elsewhere, towering structures stood atop rushing ocean currents, bathed in the scorching sunlight. Within a crumbling apartment, frantic voices echoed. Brothers, according to reliable sources, our king has been captured by the humans. ACU fumed with rage. Our king is our spiritual pillar. Now that he's gone, what should we do? Ordinary undead opened their mouths and roared in unison. Eliminate the humans. Rescue the king. Xiao He, remaining calm, reassured them. Does the king really need saving? He only wants to kill humans. A Go asked curiously. So we're just going to let him be? Xiao He, fully aware of the situation, sighed. Aside from the king, no one can stop him. The scene shifted to a massive airship, gliding slowly over calm waters. The Chief Minister, now fully restored with his mechanical enhancements, stood inside the command center. Attention, everyone, this is the command center. We have only one chance. No matter what, we must capture Dr. Kiet Men. The ship approached a location filled with abandoned buildings, structures that appeared old yet strangely well preserved. Hu excitedly followed Zhang Si, only to realize that this was enemy territory. Surprisingly, the city remained relatively intact. Suddenly, a powerful stomp echoed through the air. Soldiers lined up in formation and reported. The 56th Army is fully assembled. Zhang Si looked at the soldiers in front of him. Puzzled, they were giving orders to each other automatically. Then, they bowed and addressed him with respect. Vice Commander Zhang, the Great. One soldier stepped forward and loudly declared, we belong to the Central District No. 4 of the 56th Army. From today onward, we will only follow the orders of Vice Commander Zhang Si. Zhang Si turned his face slightly, taken aback by their continuous declarations. The 56th Army has a total of 120,000 soldiers. Please verify. Sir, under your command now, we have a multitude of soldiers and tanks ready for action. The officer continued. He leaned closer to the commander. So, whatever I say, you'll follow, right? The commander replied seriously. Yes, sir. Zhang Si smirked. Then if I tell you to die, would you really do it? Without hesitation, the officer pulled out a grenade, ready to act. The vice commander's orders are divine commands, he declared with conviction. Zhang Si panicked and shouted, wait, I was just joking, just joking. He quickly grabbed the grenade and tossed it away before breathing a sigh of relief, realizing he had just made a reckless move. At that moment, on the barrel of a tank, a man in a tight-fitting suit sat arrogantly and scoffed. So, the so-called Vice Commander Zhang is just a useless nobody? I thought you held a higher rank. Zhang Si and Hu simultaneously looked up to see who was speaking. Two men jumped down to the ground, still running their mouths. What a joke, such an important strategic position. And they sent a piece of trash like you to guard it? Both of them wore steel armor. We are from the Stainless Steel Academy. Here to cooperate with you so-called extraordinary academy people. One of them sneered. Our mission is to capture someone. Hugh immediately recognized them. Aren't they from the Steel Sword Squad of the Stainless Steel Academy? Meanwhile, on the command ship, things weren't any calmer. Chief Zhang stood holding 2 swords, looking unimpressed. So this is an internal issue among your people? And yet, our superiors still called us here to assist? Fine, we'll help, but I don't understand why they let a rookie become vice commander and even put him in charge of guarding such an important strategic position. Lan Chi, clearly annoyed, shot back. Chief Gang told you to provide support, not to make sarcastic remarks. Outsiders have no right to question the appointment of our vice commander. The student council of their academy was also busy discussing their plans. Let's keep things clear. We are responsible for entering the city and capturing the target. You are responsible for sealing off the escape routes from the outside. The northern part of the city is a complicated area with large roads. One of them pointed out. So why did they send just a minor vice commander to guard it? The head of the anti-hero academy coldly stated. Because he can crush you to pieces. The arrogant man still didn't realize the situation and continued boasting. I'm actually stronger than you. Chief. Tan sighed. Whatever. I've already sent our squad leaders to reinforce the area. You guys just stay put. Meanwhile, Kiet Min and his assistant were already prepared for battle. A young soldier reported. Commander Min, they've surrounded the city. Kiet Min gave a short, decisive order. Release the corpses. Without hesitation, he pressed the red button, unlocking the cages and unleashing the horde of zombies. On the surveillance screen, something strange caught his eye. What the hell? What kind of monster snuck in there? Bullets rained down across the city, cutting through the weaker zombies, who stood no chance against the firepower. Chief Bong and Vice Commander Tri had just finished clearing a wave of undead. Weak as snails, no challenge at all, Tri scoffed. Meanwhile, Zhang Si held onto the shoulder of a zombie, staring at it. Wait, is this my kind? Hugh whistled and looked away. I didn't hear anything. Feeling full of himself, Chief Bong turned to Vice Commander Zhang and suggested, You're not needed here, just leave this to us and go home. He even pointed mockingly behind Zhang Si before adding, Losers like you belong at the kiddie table. Hugh immediately retorted on Zhang Si's behalf. Why don't you shut that mouth of yours for once? The man's face darkened, and he took a menacing step forward, causing Hugh to shrink back in fear. You think you have the right to talk here? He sneered. Suddenly, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed nearby. It sounded human. Acu stepped forward, carrying his fuel canister, looking downright ferocious. Zhang Si, oblivious to the tension, was caught off guard. Acu? What are you doing here? Meanwhile, one of Kiet Min's subordinates was so thrilled that he burst into laughter. What kind of creature is this? All stats maxed out, absolute perfection. I've never seen a boss level being like this. Excited, he yanked the lever forward, escalating the battle. Come on, let's get this started already. 2 hours earlier, only Acu and a small zombie had been standing in the middle of the road. Everyone had been screaming and boasting just moments before. But in the end, no one showed up. Tisk, such loyal brothers, Acu muttered sarcastically. The little zombie hurriedly shoved a fuel canister into his hands. Here's the gas you wanted. Whatever you do with it has nothing to do with me. The man bent his legs and took off running. I wouldn't dare disobey the Great King. I'm out of here, good luck. Acu yelled after him, holding the fuel canister in his hand. Hey, you coward, just don't let the Great King find out. With his battle-hungry nature, Acu made his decision. Cowards, even alone, I can wipe out humanity. At that moment, Kiet Min's experimental tubes were also released, filling the air with an unknown scent. Acu flinched. What the hell is this smell? A robotic voice echoed from the laboratory speakers. New species registration in progress. Now, they were face to face. The area was eerily silent, except for a single shadow approaching. Zhang Si kept questioning Acu. Is that really you? Hugh shuddered. What the hell is this? Acu swung his saw down, slicing open the canister's lid. Then, he poured a massive amount of fuel straight into his mouth. Golden liquid streamed down his chest as he gulped it down without hesitation. Hugh was horrified. He's drinking gasoline? Meanwhile, Acu pulled the ripcord on his fuel tank, flexing his muscles as he powered it up. He tilted his head back and let out an inhuman, wolf-like howl, except this was no ordinary sound. It was a terrifying, undead roar. Hugh and the others instinctively covered their ears. But the sheer force shattered windows in nearby buildings. Zhang was the only one unaffected. The others writhed in pain as the ground trembled beneath them. Hugh, unable to withstand the shockwave, was thrown back. She landed on the pavement, horror-stricken. "Oh my god, what is he?" Acu, still in a frenzy, roared again. "Filthy humans, come play with me." Chief Bong bared his teeth in a grin. "Finally, someone interesting. Thought I was gonna go deaf for a second there." Zhang, however, grabbed Hugh's hand and pulled her away. "We need to retreat, now." She turned back in confusion. "Why are we running? We're as strong as the squad leaders." Zhang replied firmly. "We can't kill him." Acu stood his ground, his body fully charged with energy. Hugh could hardly believe what she was hearing. "What? You're joking, right?" Zhang's voice was dead serious. "I'm not joking." Acu tilted his head back and laughed wildly. "He's the real deal, 100% immortal." The team leader, Kia, glanced at them and sneered. Trash can run even faster than an airplane," he mocked. The deputy leader, Kai, raised his hand to activate his ability. "Boss, just leave this guy to me," the team leader, Bong, suddenly said. With that, he personally approached Aku, who appeared completely naive. Bong was still smugly giving instructions when Chi's body was suddenly sent flying backward. "Make sure to leave him with some strength so I can have a bit of fun." Bong chuckled. Kai crashed straight into a tank behind him, making it tremble. He looked on in shock, failing to notice the dark shadow right in front of him. "What?" Chi's mouth foamed as he immediately passed out. At that moment, Bong turned his face back, but it was already too late. Aku, with his fists clenched, was fully prepared to send this slippery guy to the afterlife. "How do you want to die?" he growled. Bong grimaced, trying to fight back. Meanwhile, Zhang and Xiao, along with their commander, had managed to climb to the rooftop. Gasping for breath, below, Aku was violently hurling the Iron Man-like opponent all over the city, destroying buildings in the process. Back in the lab, a young researcher laughed out loud. "What the hell is this? Too strong." Bong couldn't do anything against Aku's overwhelming speed. "Damn it, I'm not that easy to deal with," he shouted. But before he could finish, the high-level zombie spun him around, then slammed the steel warrior's face straight into the ground. Aku followed up with a brutal kick to Bong's face, sending him flying like a ball. Kai, still in the middle of vomiting, was suddenly flung straight into another body. In a flash, Aku was right in front of him, raising a foot to pin him down. A sharp saw blade swung high. Bong gritted his teeth and shouted, "What the?" Luckily, he managed to use his steel body to block the saw just in time. The three people on the rooftop continued watching the battle unfold. Xiao anxiously muttered, "It's over. Bong won't last much longer." Aku's laughter grew louder and louder, forcing Bong to muster all his strength to endure. "I'm a team leader. There's no way I can lose," he roared. His expression hardened as if he was thinking of something crucial. Then, without any hesitation, he threw away his pride and burst into tears. "Mom, I don't want to die. Save me." Zhang and Xiao, watching through their binoculars, were completely speechless. "Help me," Bong wailed. Meanwhile, Kiet Min's subordinates looked on in delight. The so-called human academy is finally getting what it deserves. The three on the rooftop couldn't step in. Xiao lowered the binoculars. "Is he going to kill everyone here?" she asked, her voice trembling. The commander grew anxious. "Deputy General Zhang, what should we do?" Zhang was deep in thought, calculating his next move. If he acted now, he would expose himself. After a moment, he turned to Xiao and said, "You go down and deal with him." The girl immediately screamed, "Deputy General Zhang, do you have any idea how strong that monster is? Even team leader Bong couldn't handle him. And you want me to become his next meal?" Zhang remained indifferent and simply ordered, "Give me your hand." Before she could react, he directly bit her arm. Xiao struggled, panic written all over her face. When he finally let go, she stared at the bite mark in shock. She had seen this before. Gripping her arm tightly, she gasped, "Don't tell me, you're trying to control my brain. Like that spy?" Zhang replied calmly, "I'm not that dull." His words carried a hidden meaning. Then, as if he had lost interest, he turned back to observing the situation. Meanwhile, Team leader Bong was crying his heart out, begging Aku for mercy. "Mom, I was wrong. I shouldn't have messed with you. Please spare me." The louder he screamed, the more excited Aku became, pressing the saw even closer. Suddenly, a fierce voice rang out behind them. "Hey, Aku, that guy's no fun." Aku turned, surprised. The moment he did, he heard a deranged laugh. A pair of sneakers scraped against the pavement as someone stomped down hard. Sparks flying from the massive six-barreled gun dragging along the ground. Xiao Xiao stepped forward, grinning widely, her deep-set eyes gleaming like a reaper's. "Come play with me." Inside her body, cells were shifting wildly. Then, something changed. Her mutated cells broke down and restructured, her genetic code dissolving, only to be rewritten into something entirely new. Now transformed, Xiao Xiao brandished her weapon with a maniacal smile. Aku's eyes lit up with interest. Bong, still on the ground, suddenly recognized her, tears streaming down his face. He stammered, "That girl from earlier." But she no longer paid him any mind. All of Aku's focus was now on her. She sneered, taunting him, "Who do you think you are?" Aku smirked, goading her further. "And who the hell are you?" Xiao Xiao let out a savage grin. "All talk, huh?" Then, with an insane laugh, she lifted her weapon. "Enough nonsense. Come at me." Without warning, the gun in her hands roared to life, unleashing a relentless storm of bullets in Aku's direction. "Eat lead, you bastard." The bullets from Xiao Xiao's gun continuously flew toward him. She seemed extremely excited, laughing loudly while firing. Aku easily dodged the barrage of bullets she unleashed. But Captain Bong had no choice but to hide. Hugging his knees, he prayed, tears streaming down his face in fear. Meanwhile, Aku seemed to witness something terrifying, a pitch-black scene. On the other hand, Captain Bong was rescued by his teammates. "Run!" It turned out that at some point, Xiao Xiao had flipped upside down in the sky, which was why Aku was so alarmed. While in midair, she swiftly removed the safety pins from 2 grenades in her hands, stuffed both into his mouth, and flipped away. "I'll give you an appetizer." Just as she landed, her grenades exploded. However, to everyone's shock, they didn't leave a single scratch on Aku. Instead, he stepped out of the smoke, grinning. That didn't tickle one bit. Before he could react, bullets slammed into his face. Xiao Xiao bit down on a bullet casing, laughing in delight. "This is amazing." A soldier next to Zhang Si shuddered at the sight and turned to ask, "Vice Commander Zhang, what did you do?" Zhang Si calmly replied, "Just modified Xiao Xiao's genes." Then, after a moment of silence, he focused on delving deeper into Xiao Xiao's genetic code. She can definitely become even stronger. Meanwhile, after getting shot in the face, Aku finally showed some struggle. "Ouch, that hurts." Xiao Xiao seemed to have completely lost her mind, laughing maniacally. "I love this feeling." Seeing her in such a terrifying state, Captain Bong and his comrades huddled together, trembling and on the verge of tears. Suddenly, Aku regained his composure, raised his chainsaw hand, and charged at her. "You think that's enough to take me down?" However, as soon as he swung his chainsaw at her, she effortlessly dodged, stomped down on it, and then swiftly delivered a powerful kick, sending him flying. Aku took the full force of her kick, so painful that he nearly spat out saliva. He lost control and rolled dozens of times, tumbling across the ground with his head down and his butt up. Even after taking one of Xiao Xiao's kicks, he continued rolling for several more meters. Watching from the sidelines, Captain Bong was petrified. She was clearly this strong all along, yet she acted weak just moments ago? His teammates nodded in agreement. "Yeah, she's insane. Where did she even get her weapons this time?" At that moment, Xiao Xiao's weapon switched again. "It's time for Bang Bang Bazooka." Zhang Si had been observing from the rooftop all this time. For some reason, he suddenly looked surprised. Aku, after rolling uncontrollably, finally crashed into the wall of a warehouse, coming to a stop. Ouch! Coincidentally, the spot where he hit was stacked with fuel barrels. Without hesitation, he grabbed one and chugged it down. After drinking the fuel, Aku instantly recovered. He smirked and shouted provocatively, "Keep going." On the other side, Xiao Xiao showed no fear. Instead, she laughed maniacally and responded, "Not bad." Captain Bong and his teammates were in tears, trembling in terror. "Dear God, they're both lunatics." Xiao Xiao fired the first shot at Aku, but before the bullet could even reach him, it was sliced cleanly in half. In the next instant, he moved so fast that he became almost untraceable. With a single slash, he cut through Xiao Xiao and landed far away. Xiao Xiao's body was severed in two, with blood splattering everywhere from her bisected torso. Seeing this, Captain Bong and his comrade panicked and shouted, "It's over." Aku, believing he had finished her off, laughed arrogantly. "I have an immortal body. You can't kill me, so stop wasting your energy." Meanwhile, Zhang remained silent, his expression darkening. He clenched his fists tightly as if preparing for something. And then, right before Aku's eyes, Xiao Xiao's body began to heal itself as if nothing had happened. The severed parts of her body reconnected effortlessly. Aku was so horrified by the sight that he broke into a cold sweat, his mouth hanging open in shock. What the hell? Standing across from him, Xiao Xiao smirked and muttered, "Immortal?" Her voice was now filled with madness and exhilaration. She burst into laughter and said, "Sorry, but so am I." By now, her body had fully regenerated, not a single wound remaining. Captain Bong and his teammate were even more terrified this time, screaming at the top of their lungs. As Xiao Xiao and Aku continued their fierce battle, the entire area suffered heavy destruction. Smoke and dust filled the surroundings. Even though Captain Bong and his comrade were scared out of their minds, they still couldn't resist watching the fight unfold. After receiving immortality from Zhang, she's gone completely insane. Xiao Xiao cackled wildly. "Come on, keep going." Captain Bong and his teammate screamed in terror. What kind of monster is she? Overwhelmed with fear, the two of them bolted in the opposite direction, running as fast as they could. These people are complete freaks. Somebody save me. A CU was also frightened by the scene and hesitated before asking, "What is that? Who is the Jiangxi?" Meanwhile, Zhang was leisurely observing the fierce battle below through his binoculars. The soldier beside him, however, was still trembling with fear. He was a bit surprised and muttered in amazement, "I didn't expect that after mutating, Helen would become this strong." After saying that, he continued analyzing her current physical condition. "But now, her bones are shattered," he said with a tense expression. "All her muscles have been torn apart. Even though she can use liver recombination, she still feels the pain from being slashed in half." Growing anxious, he quickly added, "We have to end this quickly." His face darkened with silent anger as he turned to a CU and scolded, "You didn't follow orders and stay inside. Don't blame me if I have to beat you up." Right after that, Helen's body suddenly surged with even more power than before. She let out a few savage laughs before charging at a CU with incredible speed. He was caught completely off guard, before he could even finish his sentence. She landed a heavy punch straight to his face. Before he could recover, she followed up with another powerful strike to his body, sending him flying. The moment he crashed down, she was already dashing toward him again. Helen appeared behind him and swung her weapon, delivering a brutal blow to his head. She attacked relentlessly, wave after wave, leaving him no chance to fight back. A CU was finally slammed into the ground so forcefully that a thick cloud of dust rose around him. At this point, he seemed to have completely lost his ability to fight. He could only manage a few broken words. But before he could finish, she rained a series of blows onto his head. Every time he tried to lift his head, she struck him down again, causing him to cry out in agony. Eventually, he couldn't endure it any longer and desperately pleaded, "Stop, stop, I surrender." His eyes welled up with tears as he pitifully begged, "I'll go home now, just stop, I'll go home right away." From a distance, Zhang silently observed the humiliating defeat of his subordinate without making any comments. The bespectacled man nearby also found himself at a loss for words. Hearing the CU's repeated pleas, Helen finally lowered her weapon, seemingly ready to let him go. However, just as she dropped her guard, a CU suddenly revealed his treacherous nature, raising his fist and delivering a surprise punch straight to her face. The impact sent her flying, crashing into two of his comrades who were in the middle of fleeing. Zhang witnessed his subordinate launching a sneak attack and clutched his head in frustration, cursing, "Damn it, Ju." Then, he turned toward Xiao Xiao and shouted, "You actually believe what he said?" As soon as Xiao Xiao finished speaking, he urgently added, "Why aren't you more cautious? The moment you let your guard down, everything will return to how it was." Meanwhile, after being struck and sent flying, she landed in a cloud of dust, then painfully leaned on the two others and trembled, saying, I don't know. Ju saw her returning to her normal human state and was overjoyed. He laughed loudly and said, "So it was just a stimulant. Huh? Looks like the effect has worn off." With that, he swung his saw-blade arm confidently and taunted, "In your next life, remember not to trust the words of a corpse." The bespectacled man, observing the scene through the screen, laughed excitedly. What kind of zombie is this? So powerful. Not only does it have hidden skills, but also a passive sneak attack ability. This is top tier. Zhang Si, feeling utterly helpless, covered his face and let out a long sigh. Meanwhile, the bespectacled man, thrilled, laughed wildly while slamming the table. "Come on, slash them all, it's over." Inside the screen, a panicked Xiao Xiao and the two others appeared, screaming, "Help, I don't want to die." On another part of the screen, Ju's savage grin was captured. Suddenly, the bespectacled man noticed something unusual on the monitor. He focused on the screen displaying Zhang Si and was visibly surprised. "Another one?" Zhang Si's figure stood firm, facing him unwaveringly. The bespectacled man smirked slyly. "No problem. With your strength, no one can be your match. Come at me." Meanwhile, Ju seemed to sense the overwhelming power radiating from Zhang Si and started trembling uncontrollably. Zhang Si's expression was dark and chilling as he called his name. Ju. Then, he slowly asked, "Do you still remember who I am?" Xiao Xiao, team leader Bong, and their teammates paused their terrified expressions as they saw Zhang Si step forward. The bespectacled man, noticing that Ju wasn't moving, was puzzled. "Why aren't you attacking? Hit him for me." Ju, however, found himself unable to move a single muscle. He groaned, struggling against his own body, facing Zhang Si's questioning gaze. Memories flooded his mind. "Didn't I tell you to stay home? Explain why you're here," Zhang Si demanded. Ju recalled that before this, his subordinates had reported to him about a powerful corpse causing trouble. They had suggested recruiting Zhang Si as one of his underlings. At the time, upon hearing this, Ju had merely chuckled and asked, "It's just you?" In the past, when he encountered Zhang Si, all he could do was force out a mocking smile. "So, it's you," he sneered, not forgetting to taunt Zhang Si. "Not quite human, not quite a corpse," he scoffed, putting on an expression that was just asking for a beating. Then, he challenged, "You look as weak as a slug. What makes you think you can order me around?" On the other side, the three bystanders had their mouths agape, completely clueless about what was happening. "What are they even talking about?" One of them whispered. "I think he just pissed himself." Another muttered in disbelief. No one had expected that Ju, the one facing Zhang Si, would be so terrified that he completely lost control of his bladder. His expression went blank, his body trembled uncontrollably, and the physiological reaction of fear took over as urine streamed down his legs. The bespectacled man, infuriated, repeatedly slammed the button in front of him. "What the hell are you doing? Hit him," he roared. Even though they couldn't clearly see Zhang Si's expression from their side, they could all feel the chilling aura emanating from him. Ju remained completely frozen, drenched in cold sweat, unable to move even an inch. Suddenly, memories of a past encounter with Zhang Si flooded his mind. He recalled the moment when he had once stood face to face with him, but in a different form. Back then, Zhang Si had seized him by the throat with one hand, gripping so tightly that the pain had forced him to choke out an apology. Feigning ignorance, Zhang Si had coldly asked, "What was that?" His subordinates, witnessing the scene from below, had panicked and desperately called out for help. Now, Zhang Si flashed a menacing grin. "Why aren't you talking anymore?" he taunted. His piercing gaze locked onto Ju, filled with a deadly chill. Then, he spoke slowly, his voice laced with menace. "Tell me, what gives you the right?" Ju's eyes widened in sheer terror, his breath hitching as a stream of snot dripped down his nose. At that moment, a furious voice rang in his ears. "What the hell are you doing?" The bespectacled man kept yelling, urging him forward. "Aren't you supposed to be immortal? What are you so afraid of?" But Ju had no mind for battle anymore. The bespectacled man had no idea that horrifying memories from the past were crashing down on him like a tidal wave. Ju could only recall the utter torment he had suffered. An immortal being, yet he had been torn apart and left hanging from a tree like a piece of butchered meat, for centuries. The bespectacled man, oblivious to his inner turmoil, kept pressing the red button in front of him over and over. "Hit him, I said hit him now." Finally, Ju let out a desperate scream. No. At that exact moment, the control panel in front of the bespectacled man exploded with a loud bang. Panicking, Ju turned on his heels and bolted, shouting as he ran, "I'm not fighting him. If you want to fight, do it yourself." The bespectacled man stood there, stunned, his mouth hanging open in sheer disbelief at what had just unfolded. Xiao Xiao, team leader Bong, and their teammates all fell into stunned silence. On the other side, Zhongxi had the same reaction, speechless. They were all at a loss for words at the sheer disgracefulness of Ju's retreat. Meanwhile, the bespectacled man still believed he had complete control over Ju. But when he saw him escape, his frustration exploded. "Damn it, he actually broke free from my control? This is the first time I've encountered this situation." Despite his shock, he refused to give up. Determined, he prepared to deploy another corpse to attack them. "It doesn't matter, I still have more undead. Let's see how you handle this." Just as he was about to act, a hand suddenly rested on his shoulder, and a voice spoke calmly. "That's enough. Give up on this path." Hearing the familiar voice, the bespectacled man turned around to see Min Kiet standing behind him. Min Kiet gave him a serious look and reminded him, "They're already here." At that moment, a large helicopter appeared in the sky above them. Inside, several familiar figures came into view. A voice echoed from the aircraft. "Team leaders, we've arrived." Sitting inside the helicopter, Lam Ky glanced over at Tu Kai and frowned. "Hey, isn't that your guy down there?" she asked. Gesturing below, with a swollen face, Tu Kai nodded and replied, "Yeah, that's him." She was about to say something else when a report came in. The structure is divided into 6 floors, covering an area of 11.000 square meters. Hearing that, Lam Kai's eyes widened in shock. "What, over 10.000 square meters? If we have to search every single gate, how long is that gonna take?" she shouted. Before anyone could answer, another voice suddenly interrupted. At the entrance of the helicopter, Kwang Dai, one of the team leaders, stepped forward. He unsheathed his sword, his expression dangerously sharp. In the face of absolute power, he declared, "Violence can solve everything." And with that, he vanished. To everyone's disbelief, he had leapt straight out of the helicopter. Lam Ky, startled, shouted, "You brute!" Kwang Dai descended at breakneck speed, his sword spinning furiously toward the ground. His entire body rotated in sync with the blade, forming a whirlwind. Laughing gleefully, he tried to reassure Lam Ky. "Don't worry, I got this." Then, with tremendous force, he crashed into the earth, triggering a massive explosion. The impact sent sand and dust flying in all directions. The sheer speed of his descent caused the ground to cave in, leaving behind a scene of utter devastation. Deep within the crater, he remained completely unfazed, as if nothing had happened. He calmly sheathed his sword and remarked, "Well, that was faster than taking the stairs." Lam Ky was utterly speechless and full of disdain when she saw him like that. "This idiot," she muttered before turning to the others in the helicopter. Pinching her face in frustration, she asked, "Do you men ever use your brains? What if it was a trap?" At that moment, the chief minister remained completely unfazed by her question. He simply stated, "Against absolute power, any scheme is useless." With that, he jumped out of the helicopter. Disappearing in an instant, he flipped in the air with the grace of a true protagonist and issued a command. "Leave the second defensive barrier to us." Lam Ky hadn't expected him to act in the same reckless manner, which left her furious. She shouted angrily, "Is there anything in your brains besides brute strength?" Meanwhile, the military forces infiltrated Dr. Kiet Min's base and began sweeping the area for any traces of activity. A soldier cautiously pushed open a door before yelling, "You're surrounded." After a thorough search, reports started coming in via radio. "Commander Kwang, Sector 1 is clear." Another voice followed shortly. "Commander Tan, Sector 2 is also empty." Commander Kwang frowned at the reports and muttered, "Did they escape?" The chief minister, standing beside him, immediately denied the possibility. "Impossible. I've sealed off all sea, land, and air routes in this city." His voice was resolute as he declared, "Not even a mosquito could get out." Meanwhile, Lam Ky and Tu Lang remained on the surface instead of rushing into the base like Commander Kwang and the chief minister. Frustrated, Lam Ky clenched her fist and complained, "Why are we stuck here while they go down to capture the enemy? The two of us together are just as strong as them." A black-clad soldier, intimidated by her outburst, hastily tried to explain, "Commander Lam KY, please stay calm, their ranks are much higher." After all, hearing this, Lam KY simply let out a cold scoff and muttered a curse under her breath. Elsewhere, high above the ground, Dr. Kiet Min and his men had not yet completely escaped. Instead, they were hiding on the rooftop of a building, preparing for their next move. At that moment, a bespectacled subordinate spoke up. "And Min, they're inside." Upon receiving the update, Kiet Min immediately gave the order. "Proceed with Plan A." Back inside the base, Commander Kwong discovered an enormous test tube. There was also a strange piece of paper attached to it. He pulled the piece of paper down and asked suspiciously, "What is this?" Then, he read the words written on it. "Inside lies the Zombie King. Extremely dangerous. If you're a real man, open it." Without hesitation, he gave an order to the soldier beside him. "Blow up the test tube. Detonate it now." The soldier immediately acknowledged the command, grabbed a fuel container, and prepared to carry out the order. "Yes, sir." Seeing this, the chief minister quickly stepped in to stop him. "Wait, we came here to capture people, not to cause more trouble." Meanwhile, the bespectacled subordinate observing the situation reported urgently, "They're scared." Kiet Min responded curtly, "Plan B." With that, he raised a suspicious-looking red button high in the air. Instantly, the timers inside the base activated, and an alarm blared throughout the facility. The chief minister's face changed as he realized the base was rigged with explosives. In shock, he shouted, "What?" Before anyone could react, the bomb detonated right in front of Commander Kwong. Soldiers who failed to escape were consumed by the fiery explosion, their bodies reduced to ashes. Debris and shrapnel flew in all directions. The chief minister, standing at a safer distance, shielded his face with his arm and remained mostly unharmed. Meanwhile, Commander Kwong, who had taken the full force of the explosion, simply let out a dismissive scoff. "This? You call this a trap?" The bespectacled subordinate, still monitoring from afar, immediately reported to Kiet Min. "And Min, they've opened it." Realizing that his plan had succeeded, Kiet Min let out a sinister chuckle before bursting into full-blown laughter. Then, in a booming voice, he declared, "Today, humanity will be wiped out." His words carried a chilling weight. But as the others glanced down at his ridiculous strawberry-printed shorts, the sight was nothing short of absurd. "Let us welcome the rise of a new superior species," he announced with eerie enthusiasm. Then, with a dangerous grin, he turned to his secret weapon and commanded, "Now, exterminate all humans, including me." Inside the base, the aftermath of the explosion left the area shrouded in a thick layer of dust and smoke. As the haze gradually cleared, Commander Kwong and the chief minister were stunned by the silhouette emerging from the fog. The Zombie King. As the smoke finally dissipated, a grotesque, grayish-green hand extended forward, a hand belonging to the undead. At last, the fabled Zombie King had appeared. However, contrary to expectations, it took the form of a small child, sucking on a pacifier. The sight left the chief minister and his men utterly bewildered, their minds filled with question marks. In the midst of their confusion, the chief minister, after carefully assessing the situation, raised his hand to stop the enraged Commander Kwong from charging forward. "Be careful," he warned. "It's not the ferocious-looking monsters you should fear. It's the ones that look innocent." He was both advising and observing the seemingly harmless monster. At first glance, it was clear that things were not so simple. "I've seen this trick many times before," he thought, "but it's still impossible to stop." Meanwhile, the furious squad leader, Steel, charged forward, launching the first strike at the Zombie King. The deadly slash of his strange blade was so fast that it was nearly impossible to follow with the eye. However, in an instant, the Zombie King had already dodged and was now standing on Steel's head. Seeing this, the commander was utterly shocked and shouted loudly, "I knew it!" Without hesitation, he turned to the soldiers behind him and gave the urgent order. "Retreat, everyone, run now, full retreat." The soldiers, highly obedient, immediately abandoned their superior and sprinted away without looking back. On the other side, the squad leader Steel was furious that the monster was standing on his head. Without delay, he quickly turned and swung his sword in a powerful downward slash, slicing the Zombie King cleanly in half. Yet, to his surprise, the creature did not die. Instead, it split into two identical Zombie Kings, flipping onto the ground. Both Steel and the commander were completely dumbfounded by this horrifying sight. Meanwhile, the two zombie kings remained eerily calm, sucking on pacifiers a few times before merging back into a single entity. After reforming, the creature stood motionless, making no further moves. Elsewhere, Dr. Kiet Min and his group had seemingly achieved their goal. The bespectacled man turned back and ordered the others, "Release the zombies, then we'll use the opportunity to escape." Without hesitation, the team obeyed the command. In a desolate place where not a single soul could be seen, a massive horde of zombies suddenly surged forward like a flood. Lam KY and two others, standing on the ground, immediately noticed the approaching wave of undead. The man in black, realizing the sheer number, panicked and cursed, "Shit, that's way too many." Still holding his food, another man hastily announced, "I'll set up defenses right now." But Nam KY interrupted him. "No need, fall back." With that, she let down her hair bun, exuding confidence. "I'll take the lead. Leave professional work to the professionals." Facing the terrifying swarm of zombies, she decisively drew her sword. With her weapon in hand, Lam KY stood fearlessly, ready for battle. In the next instant, she launched forward at incredible speed, flipping through the air before landing a powerful kick straight into the face of an approaching zombie. Lam KY unleashed a rapid flurry of attacks, kicking, striking, thrusting, and stabbing in seamless succession. In an instant, she wiped out a whole batch of zombies, sending them flying through the air. Using a sturdy tree as leverage, she exploited its elasticity to propel herself high into the sky. With a single leap, she shot upward at incredible speed. Meanwhile, the man in black, still in the middle of his meal, was so stunned by her spectacular display that his jaw nearly dropped. High above, streaks of light flashed across the sky, too fast to be seen with the naked eye. Lam Kai's sword descended diagonally from above, embedding itself deep into the ground. Using the solid blade as a foothold, she gracefully landed atop it. From the sky, rotten chunks of zombie flesh rained down. A few pieces even landed directly onto the man in black's plate. But he was too dazed by Lam Kai's technique to notice. Only when he finally looked down did he realize, to his horror, that his meal had somehow transformed into neatly sliced pieces of decayed zombie flesh, arranged with almost artistic precision. Shocked, he turned to her and shouted in admiration, "Squad leader Lan KY. So mighty." Lam KY remained composed, striking a confident pose as she coldly declared, "Trying to escape in the chaos? Not a chance." Seeing this, the bespectacled man cursed furiously. "That damn woman, we just released the zombies, and she's already taken care of them all." But he refused to admit defeat. He quickly manipulated his device, preparing to unleash another wave. "Damn it, just wait. If only we still had that chainsaw zombie from earlier." As soon as the next batch of zombies was released, they went wild, scattering in all directions in search of food. Suddenly, from the shadows, two familiar figures emerged, Little Black and a dog. At that moment, a dog turned to Little Black and whispered, "You have to keep it a secret." The zombie wearing a virus mask. Hearing this request, Little Black casually replied, "Don't worry, I won't say a word." Then, he pulled out a portrait of a CU and approached a passing zombie. Holding up the picture, "Hey, brother, have you seen this zombie? He's holding a chainsaw." Irritated at being disturbed for no reason, the zombie swatted the portrait away and snapped, "Get lost." Little Black glared in the direction the zombie had gone, seething, "Damn foreign zombies, so rude." Suddenly, a dog appeared behind him, whispering lightly, "Little Black, I'm scared. If we don't find a CU soon, we're gonna get beaten up too." Hearing this, Little Black broke into a cold sweat but tried to maintain a calm facade. "Relax," he reassured, "we'll find him." Deep within the underground base, the Zombie King stood tall, facing squad leader Steel and the commander. The two men were completely speechless, terrified by its overwhelming power. With both arms outstretched, the Zombie King taunted them, as if inviting them to continue the fight. The commander immediately came to a conclusion. "It's toying with you, squad leader Steel." Hearing this, Steel was furious, nearly fuming with rage. Without hesitation, he lunged forward, launching a flurry of attacks at the creature. "Toy with this, you bastard." However, every strike was effortlessly dodged. At last, he spotted an opening. Seizing the opportunity, he swung his blade in a horizontal slash, slicing the Zombie King in two. But just like before, it split into two identical bodies, somersaulting backward to evade his attack. Within moments, the two halves merged back together as if nothing had happened. Having failed to land a decisive blow twice, squad leader Steel gritted his teeth and cursed. "Damn it, if you're so tough, stop running." He then spoke with unwavering determination. "Let's have a real fight." The Zombie King seemed intrigued by his words. This time, it stopped sucking on its pacifier. Its body began to undergo a slow transformation, its hair and arms elongated, and its chest swelled. Before their eyes, the once infantile-looking Zombie King had morphed into a mature young woman with an impossibly well-proportioned figure. Both squad leader Steel and the commander were utterly shocked. Their jaws nearly hit the floor. "Hey, are you serious?" As the transformation completed, the commander hesitated, struggling to process what he had just witnessed. Meanwhile, the Zombie King, now exuding a mesmerizing presence, casually sat on a table and responded to Steel's challenge. "All right then," she stretched lazily, flashing a seductive smile. "Come play with me." However, squad leader Steel remained unfazed by her transformation. His eyes were filled with nothing but hostility. "Looks like I'll have to slice you into pieces," he growled. Without another word, he charged at her, unleashing twin blade slash with blinding speed. But just as his swords were about to strike, something unbelievable happened. His attack was stopped. The sharp blades that could slice through anything had been halted effortlessly by a single finger. The Zombie King had blocked his strike with nothing more than a casual touch. Steel's mind went blank. He stared in disbelief as his blade, which should have cut through flesh with ease, hadn't left even a scratch on her. His fury surged, his teeth clenched in frustration. "Damn it!" He turned around toward the chief and shouted loudly, "Come help me." Hearing himself being called for assistance, the chief could only bitterly click his tongue before taking off his cloak and transforming into prototype robot number 1. However, before he could make a move, she had already struck him with a knee to the head. Taking a direct hit like that caught him off guard, sending him flying. The force of the strike, delivered by the king of the Jiangxi, sent him straight out of the underground base. A Go, who was standing next to Xiao He, suddenly heard distant screams. What was that sound? At the same time, both Lan Qi and Zi Lang also heard the noise. To their shock, the chief had been launched from underground, piercing through the roof of a high-rise building before crashing to the ground and rolling several times. By some coincidence, he landed right in front of A Go and Xiao He, leaving them momentarily frozen in disbelief. "What the heck?" A Go blurted out in confusion. "He looks like he's about to die. Should we save him?" he asked hesitantly. Xiao He, ever the dedicated professional, responded bluntly, "Are you crazy? We're Jiangxi." At this point, the chief had lost all ability to fight and lay groaning at their feet. Meanwhile, back at the underground base, thick smoke continued to rise, accompanied by loud crashes and impacts. Suddenly, something was sent flying from within the base, smashing through another building. Lan Qi quickly realized what it was and, shocked, called out, "Commander Gang Da." Zi Lang, equally alarmed, asked, "What's going on?" Commander Gang Da, now barely holding on, coughed a few times before weakly pointing ahead, his voice trembling. "Look, over there." Lan Qi and Zi Lang turned to follow the direction he was pointing. But they couldn't comprehend what they were seeing. "What is that?" they muttered in confusion. As they stood there, facing the king of the Jiangxi, they noticed a female figure in the distance, lazily yawning. The battle against the king of the Jiangxi was proving far more difficult than expected. While the fight raged on the other side, things were completely different. Zhang Si was completely at ease, hosting a grand feast. Xiao Xiao, waiting for her meat to cook, happily hummed a tune. "I love grilled chicken wings. I love eating grilled chicken wings the most." Picking up a skewer of meat, she casually commented, "I've seen grilled chicken, grilled duck, but this is the first time I've seen grilled eggs." Zhang Si, equally relaxed, responded naturally, "I like eggs." At that moment, Captain Bong suddenly changed his demeanor and respectfully invited him. "Captain Zhang, please have some tea." After taking a sip, Zhang leisurely remarked, "This tea is a bit bitter, isn't it?" Captain Bong immediately put on an air of authority, turning sharply to scold, "Which idiot made this tea? Send someone to the south immediately and bring back premium Shajing tea by plane." Suddenly, strange sounds echoed from a distance, drawing everyone's attention. Xiao Xiao, still chewing on a skewer of meat, asked curiously, What's that noise? The scene then shifted back to the intense battle with the king of the Jiangxi. She smirked nonchalantly before standing up straight, her expression turning dark. It seemed she was ready to continue fighting. Opposite her, Zilang carefully observed the king of the Jiangxi and spoke slowly. Why does this Jiangxi seem strange? This is bad. With that, she gripped her sword and took a stance, reminding Lan Qi, now's not the time to argue. Let's work together. Lan Qi responded without hesitation. No need to tell me. The king of the Jiangxi stood before them, their expression darkening as they slowly stepped forward. Back at the feast, Xiao Xiao, sitting next to Zhang Si, finally spoke up anxiously. There's been noise coming from underground for a while now. Zhang Si, without wasting words, quickly got up and headed toward the source of the sound to check it out. Meanwhile, Lan Qi swiftly hurled her sword toward the king of the Jiangxi. The blade shot forward at high speed, slashing a wound across the king's face. Seeing this, Zilang immediately rushed in, attempting to retrieve the embedded sword. However, the king reacted quickly, delivering a powerful kick straight to her chin. Zilang was sent flying backward, letting out a painful cry. The king of the Jiangxi didn't hold back a compliment. Impressive speed. Despite the hit, Zilang managed to regain her composure midair. She instantly teleported in front of the king at incredible speed, twisting her body mid-spin to deliver a kick to the face. However, the king blocked the strike effortlessly. Too bad, not strong enough. Realizing that her attack had no effect, Zilang clicked her tongue in frustration. She swiftly flipped backward, putting some distance between them. At the same moment, Lan Qi suddenly appeared out of nowhere, slashing at the king with several strikes. Yet, the king of the Jiangxi was incredibly agile, effortlessly dodging every single one. At this moment, Commander Gang Da seemed to have regained his strength. He stood opposite the two girls, who were still locked in battle with the king of the Jiangxi. Holding onto his arm, he gritted his teeth and muttered to himself. Just a little more, hold on a little longer. Then, he straightened up and slowly said, "Give me 2 minutes." With that, he gave a command, "Activate backup engine." Immediately after, his body was enveloped in a suit of iron armor, its appearance strikingly eye-catching. The king of the Jiangxi watched his transformation with amusement and smirked. Interesting. Gang Da's body grew larger than before, his armored suit making him look incredibly imposing. 2 massive swords materialized at his waist, marking the completion of his transformation. This suit, known as Steel Heart, first generation, was now fully operational. Meanwhile, Zilang, still resilient despite her injuries, emerged from the thick smoke and firmly warned, "Don't underestimate others." Alongside her, Lan Qi stepped out of the white mist, both of them charging toward the king of the Jiangxi in unison. As they launched their attack, Lan Qi, still holding a grudge, yelled, "You think you can look down on me?" The king of the Jiangxi, unfazed by their advance, slowly extended an abnormally long tongue. Seeing this, both Lan Qi and Zilang shouted in shock. What the hell? Once again, the king's body underwent another transformation. He grew even larger, and sharp, bizarre spikes sprouted from his back. Suddenly, he raised a massive, heavy hand and slammed it down onto the ground, shattering it instantly. The impact sent Lan Qi and Zilang flying, their bodies crashing against the pavement and nearby buildings. Now fully transformed into a monstrous, towering figure, the king of the Jiangxi laughed menacingly in the direction of Commander Gang Da. Gang Da, however, showed no surprise at this new form. Instead, he calmly responded, "Come on." Then, the two girls, severely injured from being thrown back, struggled to catch their breath. Zilang, trembling slightly, muttered, "What is that thing?" She couldn't help but feel a deep sense of fear as she stared at the king's terrifying, grotesque form. Meanwhile, the king of the Jiangxi took slow, heavy steps toward Commander Gang Da. Gang Da, unfazed, stepped forward to meet him. Then, the king spoke. "One move, to decide it all. Human." Without hesitation, the two warriors launched their fists at each other with all their strength. Just by looking at the sheer difference in their fists, the outcome of this uneven battle was already apparent. As their punches collided, the overwhelming energy from the impact exploded outward, sending shockwaves rippling through the battlefield. The sheer force of the clash was enough to tear apart the ground beneath them. Lan Qi and Zilang, standing at a distance, were caught in the blast and sent flying even further. as Zhang Si and Xiao Xiao approached the source of the noise. They were suddenly met with a powerful explosion, leaving them utterly shocked. Within the dense cloud of dust and smoke, where visibility was nearly zero, two figures slowly emerged, one victorious, the other defeated, and the one who had lost this battle was none other than Commander Gang Da. His upper body had been almost completely blown away. The king of the Jiangxi, standing triumphantly, declared, "You've lost, human." But despite his grievous injuries, Gang Da remained defiant, his voice broken and weak as he retorted, "No, I haven't lost." The king of the Jiangxi, now out of patience, scoffed, "Looks like you won't shed tears until you see the coffin." The scorching sunlight beamed down upon the battlefield, illuminating the aftermath of the fierce battle. At that moment, Zhang Si and Xiao Xiao finally arrived at the site of the explosion. Xiao Xiao widened her eyes and asked in disbelief. Here, Commander Bong, who had followed closely behind, scanned the area before asking, "What happened here?" Zhang Si took a deep breath, catching a familiar scent in the air, and muttered, "A familiar smell?" From a distance, he observed the remnants of the brutal battle. Meanwhile, the king of the Jiangxi, still in his towering, muscular form, turned to Gang Da with a menacing tone. "Seems like unless I show you power capable of destroying the world, you won't be afraid." Hearing this, Gang Da was visibly shaken. "What?" Suddenly, the king's expression shifted to one of excitement as he loudly demanded, "Say that again." Then, to everyone's astonishment, his massive body began to distort and shrink. In just moments, he had returned to his normal form, still exuding an overwhelming aura of dominance. "Well, what do you think?" he asked. Lan Qi and Zi Lang, witnessing yet another transformation, were left completely dumbfounded. Meanwhile, from the observation room, Dr. Jia Ming, who had been analyzing the battle from the start, suddenly heard his bespectacled assistant speak in alarm. "Ming Ji, we can't analyze him anymore." But instead of concern, a fascinated grin spread across Jia Ming's face as he responded, This is the true king of the Jiangxi." Suddenly, the king of the Jiangxi turned around, his tone cryptic as he remarked, "Looks like we don't even need to fight anymore." Yet, even with only one arm left, Gang Da remained unyielding, charging forward with bloodlust in his eyes. Dream on. At the same time, Lan Qi and Zi Lang attacked from different angles, coordinating their strikes against him. However, the king of the Jiangxi remained unfazed, smirking as he calmly stated, "Attacking from behind? That's a mistake." With a simple flick of his fingers, an invisible force repelled Commander Gang Da, sending him skidding backward. The three joined forces, but he effortlessly broke their attacks as if they were nothing more than sharp shards of glass. Even those shards were shattered, scattering like a rain of fragments. The two girls were affected, coughing painfully. Both were struck and sent floating in midair before crashing down to the ground, tumbling toward Zhang Siu's group. Fortunately, they were caught in time, landing safely thanks to him. Xiao Xiao and the others standing behind him widened their eyes in shock at the sight. Panicked, she quickly turned to ask the team leader, Team leader Zi Lang, are you alright? What happened? Meanwhile, team leader Bong and his comrades, seeing that team leader Gang Dai was injured, hurriedly called out, "Chief Kong, are you still alive?" Lying on the ground, he struggled to respond, "I'm not dead yet, I can still fight." The corpse king, seeing that he could still talk, scoffed in disdain and taunted him, "Oh ho, I spared your life, yet you're still putting up a tough front?" Zi Lang, lying in Zhang Siu's arms, endured the pain and struggled to warn him. He is the latest generation of the corpse king, created by Dr. Kit Min. Leave now, quickly. Xiao Xiao, standing to the side, could only tremble in fear. Letting out a whimper, Lam Qi, still conscious, urgently urged them to run. But the corpse king didn't attack further. Instead, he pointed at Zhang Siu's group and commanded, "Devour them." At his order, a horde of low-level corpses suddenly swarmed in from all directions. Seeing the overwhelming force, team leader Bong and his teammates panicked. "We're doomed. Why did a whole swarm of zombies suddenly appear?" Lam Qi, who was being carried on Zhang Siu's shoulder, winced in pain and urged, "Zhang Su, we must retreat. We can't all die here." The low-level corpses charged at them at terrifying speed, claws outstretched, ready to strike. On the other side, Kit Min was extremely pleased with his creation, laughing uncontrollably. Now this is the power of the corpse king. Suddenly, Jiang Su flung Lam Qi and Zi Lang aside. Lam Qi, thrown off guard, widened his eyes in confusion. At that moment, Jiang Su became more serious than ever. His voice turned ice cold as he shouted, "Get lost, all of you!" The corpses, startled by his commanding presence, unexpectedly hesitated and froze in fear. The creatures hesitated, surrounding him but not daring to advance, though their hunger made them whimper. Fear of him caused their legs to weaken, rendering them unable to move forward. The Corpse King, standing to the side, had been observing the entire scene. His face finally revealed a trace of surprise as he asked, Who are you?" At that moment, a faint mist began to rise from Jiang Siu's face, and his features gradually changed. His expression darkened as he spoke. "You are the Corpse King." Beneath his feet, a trembling corpse knelt, paralyzed with fear. Without waiting for a response, Jiang Su pressed on. "Then what am I?" The city, where the mutated Corpse King had appeared, a product of Dr. Kidman's experiments, was now eerily empty. Jiang Su stood in the center, calmly stepping on the kneeling corpse beneath him. On the other side, Xiao Xiao and a soldier were helping Lam Qi and Zi Lang to a safer place. Meanwhile, team leader Gang Dai, after his brutal battle with the Corpse King, had lost an arm and now sat weakly on the ground, unable to move. More and more mist continued to rise from Jiang Siu's face, and his features shifted further. He turned toward the mutated Corpse King and taunted, "What's wrong? Cat got your tongue?" His stance was arrogant as he trampled over the low-level corpses before him. The mutated Corpse King, witnessing how easily Jiang Su dominated the creatures, was momentarily speechless in shock. Jiang Su let out a cold laugh, looking down at him from above. "Are you trembling?" Gang Dai, still struggling to recover, caught sight of Jiang Siu's transformation and gasped in astonishment. What is this?" Xiao Xiao, too, was stunned. He looks like that?" The mutated Corpse King finally let out a sneer. "So, you're one of us after all." Gang Dai, regaining some strength, turned toward Zi Lang and shouted angrily, "The Academy of the Extraordinary? Have you lost your minds? You actually let a corpse take the position of deputy leader?" Zi Lang simply scoffed, indifferent, "Not my problem." Now, the battlefield had only two figures left, Jiang Su and the mutated Corpse King. The latter stood on the ground, gazing up at Jiang Su, who towered over him atop a mound of corpses. The Corpse King finally spoke, his tone almost as if making a deal. "Only the last one standing deserves to be called the true Corpse King." Jiang Su found this reasoning quite agreeable. He replied, "Fine by me." The Corpse King smirked provocatively. "Then come at me." Jiang Siu's expression turned utterly ruthless. "So be it." The moment Jiang Su finished speaking, the mutated Corpse King lunged at him, throwing a punch straight at his face. However, the impact did absolutely nothing. Jiang Su didn't even flinch. Instead, he sneered, "Did you forget to eat or something?" Hearing that, the Corpse King grew furious. "You!" Before he could finish, Jiang Su retaliated with a punch to his stomach. The force of the blow not only sent the Corpse King flying but also knocked away several nearby corpses, scattering them in all directions. "I suggest you eat first before trying to fight," Jiang Su remarked mockingly. Xiao Xiao, who was holding onto Zi Lang, screamed in terror at the sight of corpses flying chaotically through the air right in front of her. Meanwhile, the mutated Corpse King let out a pained roar as he was blasted several hundred meters away. His body kept soaring, unstoppably propelled across continents, until he crashed straight into the ocean. At a nearby harbor, workers suddenly noticed something hurtling toward them. Their eyes widened in panic. "What the hell is that? Run!" Before they could react, the Corpse King slammed into a massive ship, the impact cracking a large portion of its hull. The entire vessel trembled violently from the collision. The mutated Corpse King groaned in pain, still reeling from Jiang Siu's devastating strike. Dr. Kit Min and the bespectacled man beside him watched the scene in utter shock. Their mouths agape. "What? That guy? He's a corpse?" Suddenly, a tremor rippled through the ocean. Yet instead of despair, the Corpse King grinned in amusement. "Not bad," he muttered, impressed. The bespectacled man turned to Kid Min in a panic. "Dr. Min, this guy just showed up out of nowhere. We can't even analyze him." Kid Min remained silent, at a complete loss for what to do. Just then, the Corpse King plunged into the water. Moments later, with a massive display of strength, He lifted the colossal ship and hurled it with all his might, straight at Jiangsu. From afar, Xiao Xiao saw the airborne ship and screamed, "What the hell is that?" Zi Lang, getting a clearer view, was equally stunned. A submarine? He threw a whole damn ship from the ocean into the city? The Corpse King let out a wicked laugh. Sorry, but I'm full now. The sheer force of the ship's impact shattered the streets, leaving massive cracks and debris everywhere. By now, Xiao Xiao was so terrified that her legs gave out, and she collapsed onto the ground. With difficulty, she muttered, "I think, you two should fight somewhere else." Meanwhile, at headquarters, a Go and Xiao Hei stood protectively by the commander's side, never leaving his side for a second. A Go glanced over at him, watching as he busily welded something together. At that moment, he advanced into the forest. But Han suddenly stopped again. Little Hei, confused, asked, "What's wrong?" He looked off into the distance and then reminded him, "Look over there." The chief thought he was safe. But who would have thought he'd end up just as miserable? He clenched his teeth in rage and cursed under his breath. These two idiots. The parts that shouldn't be removed have been taken off, and the ones that should be removed have been welded back. A Go slowly said to Little Hei, "That's the breath of the king." Meanwhile, after the Vampire King transformed, he threw a ship at Jiangtu. Suddenly, something shot up from below, piercing straight through the ship's hull. Yet, Jiangtu remained unscathed. With incredible ease, he flipped through the air, then provocatively raised an eyebrow at him. Seeing that he was unharmed, Xiao Xiao suddenly shouted, "Jiangtu!" The transformed Vampire King was just as shocked and stared at him in disbelief. Then, without warning, he shot forward at an incredible speed. At that moment, high in the air, Jiangtu held a rope in his hand and listened to the king speak. Once again, he threw the loop around his opponent's neck and responded casually, "All right, then." From above, he gripped the rope tightly as if he were playing a game. Squad leader Gang Da, witnessing this scene, couldn't hide his astonishment and muttered, "Is that really a vampire?" Jiangtu tightened his grip on the rope and shot downward. "Let's see where you run this time." The Vampire King was yanked backward forcefully. As Jiangtu pulled him closer, he wasted no time, immediately raising his foot and landing a direct kick to the king's face. The impact crushed his face inward. Once again, he was sent flying high into the sky. The Vampire King, completely overwhelmed, clicked his tongue in frustration. He grabbed the rope around his neck and muttered, "This thing." Then, exerting all his strength, he yanked at the rope and sneered, "I know what I'm doing too." Jiangtu instantly realized he was trying to counterattack with the rope. So he decisively snapped it and replied coldly, "You know nothing." But to his surprise, the Vampire King didn't counterattack. Instead, he turned and bolted in the opposite direction. He moved so fast that he sent an entire ship flying. Squad leader Bong, who was supporting Gang Da, was also stunned. Meanwhile, Jiangtu stood calmly atop a red pillar, watching him with amusement. Then, he unleashed a move to stop the king's escape. Furious at being interrupted, the Vampire King immediately defended himself. "I just wanted to find a more open space, not run away." Before he could finish his words, Jiangtu struck him with a powerful blow, sending him crashing into the sea with such force that he bounced several times across the water's surface. Then, Jiangtu leapt down, landing on the deck of a nearby ship. The people nearby were startled by the appearance of the two individuals and panicked, asking each other, "What strange thing is flying toward us this time?" One of them, a man, stood on the ship, gazing down at the deep and tranquil sea before speaking. "So, you enjoy smashing things, huh?" The bystanders, upon getting a clear look at him, were horrified, screaming and scattering in fear. "A Jiangshi. He's a Jiangshi. Run, get out of here now." Hearing the question, the other man arrogantly retorted, "Whatever, if you're so tough, why don't you smash something too?" At that moment, the Grand Chief was watching their battle unfold, so overwhelmed that he could barely speak. It turned out that he was being held up by a Go, allowing him to have a clear view of the fight. He turned anxiously to Xiao Hei and said urgently, "We have to leave this place immediately. I know Zhang Si is strong, but I understand Dr. Min Kiet even better. He is humanity's one and only research genius of the past few centuries. Any study he has ever conducted has had the potential to turn an ordinary person into a supreme ruler. If we don't leave now, we won't get the chance." However, Zhang Si was unfazed by these words and directly told him to shut up. "Watch closely, humans." The Grand Chief was stunned. not understanding what Jiangxi meant. Meanwhile, Xiao He smiled with absolute confidence and admiration. No one can rival the king. Then, as if to emphasize, he added, not even the gods can compare. Hearing this, the other man's face twisted in confusion. The gods? Just then, Zhang Si's figure on the ship flickered and suddenly vanished. The Jiangxi king reappeared upside down, with his head facing downward. Seeing him disappear so abruptly, his opponent felt a moment of panic. But in the next instant, Zhang Si materialized right in front of him, his expression dark and menacing. His opponent's face changed drastically in shock. His speed has increased. Before he could react further, Zhang Si's punch landed squarely on his face, sending him flying high into the sky. He soared beyond Earth's atmosphere, groaning in pain. But before he could recover, an even greater shock awaited him. What? He shouted in disbelief. Before his eyes, a massive object hurtled toward him, an entire spaceship. Zhang Si had actually thrown a spacecraft straight into outer space, aiming it at him with terrifying force. The vessel struck him directly before he could evade, and both of them crashed into the moon. The impact was so intense that it caused a portion of the lunar surface to crack apart. Down below, Xiao Xiao and the others stared in horror as they witnessed the moon sustaining such damage. Their jaws dropped in shock. Standing atop a lifeboat among the harbor soldiers, Zhang Si laughed heartily, utterly satisfied. The ship that had struck his opponent remained embedded in the moon's surface, as if it had been planted there permanently. At that moment, Xiao Xiao didn't even know what kind of expression to make. Instead, she uttered a remark that was both teasing and exasperating. All right, no need to run anymore. It's useless anyway. Despite everything, the transformed Jiangxi king had yet to be defeated. Clinging to the surface of the moon, he gritted his teeth and declared, "It's not over yet." Then, mustering every last ounce of his strength, he let out a deafening roar and forcefully pushed the massive spaceship away from his body. The enormous vessel was sent tumbling backward, drifting into space. Without hesitation, he launched himself off the moon and hurtled toward Earth at breakneck speed. "It's not over yet. What are you so smug about?" he bellowed. Zhang Si, watching from Earth, noticed the relentless bloodlust in his opponent's eyes. He merely scoffed coldly, his demeanor calm and unshaken as he observed the enemy's rapid descent. Then, with a booming laugh, he crouched slightly before propelling himself high into the sky. He soared toward the spaceship still floating in outer space, his expression growing wilder and more intense. Without missing a beat, he pursued his foe all the way back toward Earth. The chase between the two led them straight to a nuclear reactor. Without hesitation, the transformed Jiangxi king swung his fist and sent the entire nuclear reactor flying into the sky. "Try this," he roared. The reactor soared upward, radiating an ominous glow as if it was on the verge of detonating. The people below, including Xiao Xiao and the others, were utterly terrified. Their faces drained of color as they screamed, "Oh no, nuclear energy!" The reactor's energy swelled more and more, expanding across the sky until it reached the coastline. The sea itself became uncontrollable, with waves surging wildly. Then, in an instant, a massive nuclear explosion erupted in the sky above Earth. The group below frantically took cover behind thick steel plates, shielding themselves from the devastating blast. When the explosion finally subsided, only thick clouds of dust and debris remained. Then, as if completely unfazed, Zhang Si descended lightly to the ground, without a single scratch on him. His opponent followed suit, landing a short distance away. Though he, too, was unharmed, his tattered clothing revealed just how powerful the nuclear blast had been. Yet, Zhang Si only grinned, still thoroughly amused. "What's wrong? Not going to keep fighting? That level of damage barely even tickled me." Hearing this, his opponent ground his teeth in fury, his face contorted with rage. "What did you just say?" he shouted. Zhang Si simply stood there, unwavering, staring intently in the direction of the ship where his enemy stood. After struggling to withstand the impact of the nuclear explosion, Xiao Xiao and the others lay sprawled across the ground. Concerned, she quickly looked around and asked, "Is everyone okay?" Then, lifting her head slightly, she hesitantly asked, "Is it over?" But the transformed Jiangxi king refused to give up. With a deep, guttural growl, he flexed his muscles and declared, "No, it's not over yet." The next moment, he manifested a massive, monstrous arm and began speaking in a negotiating tone. "We are the same kind. I have a proposal." His expression was resolute as he continued. If neither of us can defeat the other, why not work together? As he spoke, he used his enormous arm to shove Zhang Si backward while making his outrageous proposition. Let's destroy the world together. With a single push, his colossal arm sent Zhang Si flying back into the heart of the city. His voice was filled with wild ambition as he shouted, "From now on, we split everything in half. No one interferes with the other." Zhang Si crashed into a towering skyscraper, causing a massive explosion that obliterated the entire structure. Xiao Xiao screamed in shock at the sight. Retracting his massive arm, the Jiangxi king then asked, "So, what do you think of my offer?" Yet, despite the devastation, Zhang Si remained completely unscathed. He let out a cold, mocking chuckle before replying icily, "I have no interest in destroying the world." Then, without hesitation, he continued, "And another thing." Meanwhile, the scene shifted to Xiao He, a Go, and the Grand Chief. The Grand Chief was still visibly shaken, stammering in disbelief. This is absurd." He then turned sharply toward Xiao He, desperately trying to convince him. "I'm serious. We should run while we still can." Seeing that Xiao He wasn't moving, the Grand Chief hurriedly added, "I know Zhang Si is incredibly strong after transforming, but that other guy isn't weak either. We need to conserve our strength, find his weakness, and take down that Jiangxi king." But Xiao He had no patience for this. Furrowing his brows, he simply ordered, "Shut up." The Grand Chief, realizing he had been outright dismissed, went silent, unable to utter another word. Then, with a confident smirk, Xiao He turned to him and said, "Who told you our king can only transform once?" Hearing this, the Grand Chief was even more stunned, exclaiming, "What?" Back on the battlefield, Zhang Si's expression grew colder as he picked up where he left off. "About this so-called cooperation you proposed." Then, with absolute disdain, he sneered, "You're not worthy." Standing atop the ruined skyscraper, his gaze was piercing as he asked mockingly, "Splitting everything in half? How can you even say that with a straight face?" The Grand Chief, realizing Zhang Si was completely unharmed, could only gape in astonishment. His eyes flashed a deadly red as he continued speaking. "Only fools keep shouting about destroying or ruling the world." Xiao Xiao stood below, unable to grasp the situation between the two. So she asked, "What are they talking about?" The team leader, hearing her question, answered honestly, "I don't know. It's too far." The Vampire King transformed. Hearing those words made his anger boil even hotter than eating chili. He clenched his teeth and shouted, "You!" He didn't care how the other man felt at that moment. He only cared about teaching him a lesson. So he lowered his voice and said, "It seems if I don't discipline you, you'll never understand." Right after, his body once again emitted wisps of smoke as he transformed. He exerted so much force that rocks flew into the air, and his clothes began to tear apart. Finally, he unleashed his full power, completely shedding his old form. Xiao Xiao and the others below were stunned into silence by his transformation. At that moment, Zhang Si emerged, looking entirely different, not like a vampire or a monster, but more like an ordinary human. Seeing his new appearance, Xiao Xiao's group was so shocked their eyes almost popped out. "What the heck?" someone exclaimed. "His appearance now, he looks just like a normal human." Standing casually on the rooftop, Zhang Si's cold and piercing eyes swept in a certain direction. The figure on the other side immediately felt his terrifying aura. Frightened by Zhang Si's overwhelming presence, the man let out a loud, startled cry. Meanwhile, He and Ego, along with the commander, fell into an eerie silence. The commander, his face solemn, said nothing. Suddenly, Ego raised his massive hand and delivered a powerful slap, sending the commander's snot flying. "Wake up, idiot!" Ego shouted. Then, grabbing the commander's head and lifting him up, he said, "See for yourself." As the commander got a clearer view, his fear intensified, and cold sweat dripped from his face. Ego continued to praise, "Look at our god." At that moment, Zhang Si lifted his foot and stepped onto a protruding rock, striking a bold and imposing pose while still locking his gaze onto the transformed Vampire King. Zi Lang, witnessing his current form, was utterly shocked. He transformed again, unlike the Corpse King. Dr. Kiet Min Lam muttered from behind, "He looks more and more human." The commander trembled and stammered, This, compared to before?" Seeing Zhang Si's completely human-like appearance, he was struck with terror, questioning whether such a thing was even possible. At that moment, the sky suddenly poured down raindrops. Zilang's expression changed as he saw the sudden rainfall. It's raining. The transformed vampire king, unwilling to accept the situation, looked at Zhang Si and shouted, "Damn it, what the hell are you?" Then, in an instant, he teleported in front of Zhang Si, raising his fist and yelling, "Are you human or a corpse?" He threw a powerful punch at Zhang Si, intending to end him with that single blow. Yet, Zhang Si's expression remained unchanged. He calmly stared at his opponent as if nothing had happened. Before the raindrops could even reach the ground, they suddenly stopped midair. It was him. He was the one controlling the rain. Immediately, the vampire king's body was sliced into pieces. The suspended raindrops reversed their direction, flowing back into the sky under Zhang Si's control. Everything else followed: the people, the objects, even the massive ship weighing hundreds of thousands of tons was pulled upward. Not just that, but even the fish, whether large or small, were all dragged into the sky. Hu finally realized this was Zhang Si's doing. Shocked, she screamed, "The rain is flowing backward. Since when could the undead do this?" As Zhang Si ceased his control over the rain, everything that had been lifted, including Hu and the other creatures, came crashing back down. On the other side, the transformed vampire king, after having all his limbs severed, was left completely powerless. Zhang Si stared down at him with sharp, piercing eyes and said, "I'm your father." From space, Earth could be seen with a massive vortex forming at a single location. Hu, witnessing the bizarre phenomenon in Earth's atmosphere, trembled in fear. Is this the eye of a massive storm? Lam Ky and Zilang, who had been pulled into the sky earlier, also began falling back down. Around Zhang Si, fish that had been drawn from the ocean rained down alongside them. Lying on the ground, Zilang struggled to look up at him and spoke with difficulty. Even vampires have this kind of power now? A gigantic whale, like the others, plummeted and crashed into a high-rise building. From afar, Dr. Kiet Min was utterly shocked. His four-eyed subordinate screamed in terror. What the hell is happening? A whale? The transformed vampire king lay helplessly on the ground, staring up at Zhang Si in disbelief. Damn it, something like this is possible? The four-eyed subordinate turned to Kiet Min and asked, "Boss Min, have you ever seen a vampire king like this before?" Still trembling in fear, Kiet Min stammered, "And never seen anything like this before." Suddenly, the transformed vampire king forced himself up from the ground and declared resolutely, "Recover." His severed hands began regenerating. First the bones, then the flesh. Once both hands were fully restored, he sneered defiantly, "What's the point of doing all this? I can't harm you, but what about you?" He roared furiously at Zhang Si. "The life force of the vampire king is immortal. Even if you cut me into countless tiny pieces, I will always regenerate." Zhang Si, unfazed, simply let out a soft, "Oh?" Then, with a casual sweep of his hand, an invisible force yanked the vampire king toward him. Caught off guard, he shouted, "What?" Before he could react, his throat was already firmly gripped in Zhang Si's hand. The vampire king struggled desperately, his body writhing in pain under Zhang Si's crushing grip. Zhang Si's voice turned icy as he spoke, "You've misunderstood the nature of death." Without waiting for a response, he continued, "Destroying someone isn't just about destroying their body." The vampire king's eyes widened. "You?" Zhang Si said nothing more. His cold, emotionless gaze locked onto his opponent, sending an inexplicable, soul-crushing terror through him. For some reason, the vampire king suddenly let out a strangled cry of agony. Deep within Zhang Si's eyes, there seemed to be some hypnotic, horrifying power, something beyond comprehension. Meanwhile, massive warships appeared one after another in outer space, though it was unclear whether they belonged to humans or an extraterrestrial force. Out at sea, deadly tornadoes emerged, twisting violently across the ocean. The vampire king, still in Zhang Si's grasp, seemed to be undergoing some unimaginable torment. He gasped painfully, Who, human?" At that moment, another image flashed. A colossal spaceship appeared in the depths of space. On board, a figure clad in magnificent, heavy armor stood still. "Ancient beings," he murmured. Following his words, more warriors leapt from the ship, executing their orders. "Kill." The one wearing crimson armor spoke again, his voice carrying an eerie, chilling tone. "Encircle and annihilate." This marks the 1.351 stone extermination, the sixth destruction of human civilization. This time, we will eradicate them completely. Down in the raging ocean, a familiar silhouette stood amidst the violent storms. Poised to strike, the Vampire King's eyes rolled back, his consciousness was slipping away. Meanwhile, the ships in space began exploding one by one, sending shockwaves across the void. Panicked screams filled the air as those inside the ships shouted frantically. "He's transforming again. Help! Save us!" The long-haired man's eyes flickered with an icy glow. Upon seeing him clearly, the Vampire King was struck with terror and let out a long, blood-curdling scream. From the darkness, a blood-red eye emerged, radiating an overwhelming sense of dread. In an instant, the Vampire King's body went limp. Drained of all strength, his eyes turned completely white, lifeless and void of any will to fight. His body grew weak in Zhang Si's grip, his power utterly vanishing. Below, Xiao Xiao, unaware of what had just happened, called out, "What's going on?" Even Lang Zi couldn't suppress his curiosity. "Is it over?" Zhang Si released his grip, letting the Vampire King's body plummet from the rooftop. He fell freely, crashing into the ground below, motionless, unresponsive. It was as if he had been completely and utterly defeated, his once piercing black eyes now void of any consciousness. On the other side, the commander was stunned by what he saw. What happened? Why isn't he moving anymore?" he asked in confusion. "Hey," hearing the question, casually responded, "probably lost consciousness after seeing the Vampire King's third form." The commander was dumbfounded, shouting, "What, scared to death?" Dr. Kiet Min, watching from a distance, was equally shocked. How did this happen?" he muttered to himself. Unable to comprehend the scene before him, the four-eyed subordinate, witnessing their Vampire King's downfall, stammered in sheer horror, Gone? He's really gone." It turned out they had prepared helicopters in advance, in case of an emergency escape should they lose the battle. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the four-eyed man panicked and turned to Kiet Min. "Boss Min," he cried, grabbing onto him, "the coastal defenses are down. We need to leave now. If we don't go now, we'll never make it out." But just as they turned to flee, they suddenly crashed into something firm, immovable, a solid, muscular chest. Their faces froze in pure horror. Zhang Si had appeared before them without a sound. Terrified, they instinctively staggered several meters back. The four-eyed man and the others screamed in shock. A vampire? We never revealed ourselves. How does he know about us?" Zhang Si's gaze remained eerily calm as he looked at them. Kiet Min, the four-eyed subordinate, and the others found themselves trembling, collapsed on the ground, barely able to speak. Mama, they whimpered. Zhang Si didn't even spare them a glance, his tone indifferent as he spoke. "So, will you surrender willingly, or would you rather join the Vampire King?" Then, he added with a chilling edge to his voice, "I'll give you 1 second to decide." Without hesitation, the four-eyed man and his group immediately raised their hands in surrender. We surrender. We turn ourselves in." Kiet Min was furious at that moment, but there was nothing he could do. He could only force out a few bitter words through gritted teeth. He remained silent, glaring at them without saying anything more. And just like that, everything had come to an end. Dr. Kevin Min, who was supposed to be executed on the spot, was captured alive by John Zhang. His men were also taken away in a vehicle for transport. Meanwhile, Ethan Ling suddenly noticed something strange in John's expression and asked Ivy, "What's wrong with him?" She honestly replied that she didn't know. On the other side, John finally returned to his original form. He sat in silence for a moment, looking dejected. Turning into that thing was terrifying. He muttered, "I'm just a kind-hearted Jiangxi." Ethan then glanced at Ivy and urged her to go check on John. However, she was still traumatized by his frightening form earlier and had no courage to approach him. "No way, I'm too scared. You saw how terrifying he was," she protested. Ethan gave her no time to escape, pushing her forward and promising, "Go on, if you do this, I'll let you be John's second in command." Reluctantly, Ivy slowly approached him and hesitantly asked, "John, are you okay? Let's go." Suddenly, he stood up abruptly, scaring her so much that her expression twisted in fear. "I'm hungry," he said. Then, in a calm voice, he added, "And I need some clothes that aren't torn." Ivy finally felt relieved, telling herself that he was no longer aggressive. Walking beside him, she cautiously asked, By the way, John, do you remember what you just did? Of course, he answered honestly, but it's all a blur. Then he paused, thinking deeply. I have no sense of time. But I must have fought a few weirdos like him before. Ivy didn't quite understand, so she could only let out a confused, huh? John didn't explain further and simply said, whatever, they were weak, so I didn't bother remembering. Meanwhile, in the prisoner transport vehicle, a sinister laugh suddenly rang out. The bespectacled man, startled by Kevin Min's eerie laughter, asked, Dr. Min, what's so funny? Kevin paid no attention to his own fate. Instead, he marveled, John Jong, I never expected such a powerful creature to exist. His excitement grew as a new plan formed in his mind. I will get my hands on your liver and create a being even stronger than you. And so, the fierce battle against the shape-shifting Jiangxi king finally came to an end, restoring peace to the human world. The undead creatures engineered by Dr. Kevin Min were utterly terrified by John Jong. And with that, Kevin Min's story had reached its conclusion. At this moment, he was standing in a sealed room, surrounded by mysterious figures. One of them spoke up, asking, John Jong, do you have any thoughts on becoming the group leader? He casually responded, no, I don't. The mysterious figures continued, all right, becoming a group leader isn't just about having great strength. Besides protecting the city, you also have to manage it. After saying this, the speaker added, if, within the designated time frame, the city's population doesn't surpass 10 million, you will be dismissed. After finishing the statement, the person asked for his opinion. What is your vision for the city? What kind of city do you want? John scratched his head humbly and smiled. Just give me City H, the place where we captured Dr. Kevin Min. Hearing this, the person was visibly surprised and tried to remind him. What? That's an empty city, a completely uninhabited area. If you want to raise chickens, you at least need eggs. The more they spoke, the more agitated they became, raising their voice. Even if you don't have eggs, you still need fertilized cells. How are you going to develop anything when there's no one there? If the population doesn't meet the target, you'll lose your position as group leader. Despite the sincere advice, John remained firm and insisted, no, I want it. Seeing his unwavering stance, the person had no choice but to concede. Fine, do as you wish. In the end, John was officially appointed as the group leader and formally took control of City H. Meanwhile, a blonde-haired woman wearing an eye patch saw his appointment letter and flew into a rage. She cursed at the extraordinary academy, yelling, what idiot from the middle of nowhere made this decision? Even though people tried to calm her down, she couldn't hold back and continued. There were so many good cities to choose from, and he just had to pick an empty one. How the hell is he supposed to develop it? Ethan Ling, on the other hand, was just as exasperated by John's decision. He could only sigh deeply, covering his face with his hand. Some time passed after the intense battle in City H, and now the entire place was under John's management. To protect the city, he expanded the forces into 4 legions. From this moment on, history was made. The citizens of City H were none other than kind-hearted Jiangxi who had been wandering without a home. At that moment, a young Jiangxi child exclaimed, Mom, our new home is amazing. Another Jiangxi boy pointed ahead excitedly. Mom, look, humans. Following John's orders, soldiers arrived in City H to maintain order. It was a historical moment. The era where humans protected Jiangxi as they moved into their new homes had begun. John Jong stood high above, gazing proudly down at his city. Little Black stepped forward to report on the progress of the mission. Reporting to the king, as per your request, all Jiangxi citizens have moved in. John, showing no emotion, simply responded, good. Suddenly, the soldiers stood in perfect formation and saluted in unison. A small Jiangxi, witnessing this display, was so startled that it let out a loud scream. Trembling, it rushed back to its mother and asked anxiously, Mom, are they going to hit us with fire sticks? The soldiers, maintaining their solemn stance, declared, the orders of group leader John Jong are the will of the heavens. The citizens under his rule are also our citizens. We will protect everyone and ensure they settle in safely. Hearing this, the little Jiangxi broke into a cold sweat, too overwhelmed to say anything. At that moment, Ah Mao excitedly spoke up. All right, now we have a city of our own. John continued walking calmly, voicing his thoughts. Sometimes, the growth of a race doesn't have to rely on war. His subordinates nodded in agreement. Ah Go happily responded, yes, my lord. Suddenly, Ah Go remembered something and asked, "Oh right, my lord, what about Ah Ju? He's been hanging there for months now." John waved his hand dismissively. "Let him keep hanging." The scene shifted to a massive, imposing building. This was the Zhang City Hall. Suspended from the top of the building, with his limbs stretched out and tied, was Ah Ju. He was utterly miserable, tears streaming down his face as he sobbed. I was wrong. Please, I'm about to dry up into a husk. I'll listen next time, I swear. And just like that, Season 1 of Mr. Jiangxi came to an end, peaceful and filled with laughter. Now, thanks to John Zhang, Jiangxi could live happily and comfortably. A mother Jiangxi lifted her child high into the air, smiling joyfully. Quick, thank the king, we finally have a home. With Season 2 of Mr. Jiangxi on the horizon, even more surprises and excitement awaited. Just then, Ethan Ling suddenly appeared out of nowhere, only to be sent flying backward by a powerful force. She crashed into a wall behind her, letting out a pained scream. She struggled to her feet, coughing a few times as she lay amid the rubble. With great difficulty, she lifted her gaze toward the figure before her, eyes filled with shock. How is this happening? Directly in front of her stood Ivy. But she was no longer the same person. She had undergone a terrifying transformation due to John Yang's genes within her. Now, with a massive weapon slung over her shoulder, she let out a wild, exhilarating laugh. The battle between Ivy and Ethan Ling was reaching a fever pitch. Ethan, already covered in injuries, struggled to hold her ground. How is this even possible? She muttered in disbelief. It's like she's a completely different person. On the other side, Ivy, now fully influenced by John Yang's genes, had turned into a feral Jiangxi. She laughed maniacally before shouting, "Big sis Ethan, I can keep going all night." Ethan, refusing to give up, immediately pulled herself up. In a flash, she teleported, vanishing from sight for a split second before reappearing right behind Ivy. Just as she was about to strike, Ivy's head suddenly twisted 180 degrees, locking eyes with her. The sight was so horrifying that Ethan let out a shocked curse. Completely thrown off, she lost her footing and tumbled to the ground. She barely managed to catch herself with both hands before looking up in utter disbelief. Is this even human? Her expression shifted instantly as she realized Ivy had lost all traces of humanity. Now, with a twisted grin, Ivy raised her massive weapon and swung it down mercilessly. Ethan barely managed to roll backward several meters, dodging the impact just in time. Then came the bullets. A relentless hailstorm of gunfire rained down on her as Ivy continued her rampage. Twisting her face into an insane grin, she screamed at the top of her lungs, "Big sis Ethan, can I be the group leader now?" The ground was littered with bullet casings as Ivy laughed maniacally, firing wildly in Ethan's direction. Ethan, having narrowly avoided the onslaught, leapt toward a nearby wall. Using it as a springboard, she propelled herself high into the air. Looking down at Ivy, she clicked her tongue in frustration. "Fine, show me what you've got." Then, Ivy, however, wasn't the least bit worried. She simply scoffed before activating the cells within her body. At the same moment, Ethan launched her attack, Moonlit Blade Slash. Her strikes, as sharp as the cold edge of a sword, should have been enough to tear through any opponent. But Ivy remained completely unscathed. She turned to Ethan with a mocking smirk. "Big sis, if you're not going to take this seriously, why should I?" Ethan's eyes darkened. This time, she didn't hold back. Raising her sword high, she brought it down in a single, merciless strike. The impact was devastating. Ivy's body was split clean in half. But she didn't scream. She didn't panic. Instead, she just kept laughing. Ethan Ling was utterly shocked. Ivy had taken the full force of her attack without even trying to dodge. Why didn't she evade it? Her voice trembled as she suddenly screamed in panic, watching in disbelief as Ivy's body completely regenerated in an instant. What the hell is this? Despite the gruesome wound from earlier, Ivy looked as if nothing had happened. She simply smiled nonchalantly. Ethan, overwhelmed with fear, instinctively leapt backward, still unable to comprehend what she had just witnessed. Her mind raced. This is way too much. What the hell did John Zhang do to her? Ivy, sensing her hesitation, smirked confidently and taunted. "So, can I be the group leader now?" Without waiting for an answer, she clenched her fist and charged straight toward Ethan. Boom! Her punch landed clean, slamming Ethan against the wall with a bone-crushing impact. Ethan coughed violently, gasping for air as pain surged through her body. She remained silent for a moment before muttering, "All right, it's over." At that moment, Ivy's body was enveloped in a thin white mist. Slowly, she reverted back to her original form. Now back to normal. Ivy immediately panicked and rushed toward Ethan, worry written all over her face. "Big sis Ethan, are you okay?" I didn't mean to." Ethan, not bothering to dwell on the damage, got straight to the point. "After John Jong bit you, did you turn into a Jiangshi?" Ivy blinked in confusion before naturally denying it. "No, didn't we just do a full body examination in the lab yesterday? My cells are normal. Even my genes haven't changed." Ethan still didn't believe her. She narrowed her eyes. "Then explain how you turned your head 180 degrees and regenerated after being sliced in half." Ivy, maintaining her usual honesty, shrugged. "I don't know. It just happens. If I want to transform, I can, and it doesn't feel bad at all." Then, as if recalling something, she casually added, "Oh, if I ever feel down, I can just take 2 adrenaline shots. That'll make me even stronger. It's been a while now, and there haven't been any side effects." After finishing her explanation, she called out, "Big sis Ethan?" Ethan, having processed everything, remained silent. Her expression darkened, and she didn't say a word. "Big sis Ethan? What's wrong?" Ivy asked again, now genuinely puzzled. Without responding, Ethan suddenly got up, pushing Ivy aside. "Move." Ivy, confused, quickly asked, "Where are you going?" Watching Ethan's retreating figure, her confusion deepened. "What's wrong with her?" One of Ivy's subordinates, just as concerned, called out anxiously, "Group leader, where are you headed?" Ethan didn't stop. Without hesitation, she coldly replied, "City H." Right after that, she rushed onto the plane and took off, heading straight to the city under Zhang Sis administration. By the time the flight ended, she had already landed in City H. Zi Lang dashed off the plane without waiting for her subordinates, causing one of them to call out urgently, "Team leader Zi Lang, wait for me." At this moment, the scene shifted to City Hall in City H where Zhang Si was currently in office. He was in the middle of a meeting with his subordinates, seriously reading out names from a document in his hand. A Mao, in charge of the Qinghua district. A Gan, chief of the city police department. A Lang, chief of the civil affairs bureau. Finally, he mentioned another name, and there's Xiao He as well. Upon hearing his name, Xiao He immediately stood up and loudly responded, "Present." Zhang Si then casually announced, "I'm appointing Xiao He as the chief of the city finance bureau. From now on, you'll manage all the city's finances." Receiving the appointment letter, Xiao He solemnly vowed, "I swear to protect every single cent of the finance bureau under Zhang Si." Just then, the meeting room doors were suddenly flung open. Zi Lang rushed in, panting heavily. Seeing her unexpected arrival, Zhang Si smiled warmly and asked, "Zi Lang, what's the matter?" Without saying a word, she quickly ran toward him. Seeing her urgency, Zhang Si didn't find it suspicious and said in a relaxed tone, "I was just about to find you to give a report." Before he could finish, she shoved her hand into his mouth and ordered, "Open up." Suddenly having his head grabbed and his mouth forced open, Zhang Si was utterly confused, his mind full of question marks. Then, without warning, he lowered his head and bit down on her soft, fair arm. As soon as it was done, she immediately turned away, preparing to leave in a hurry. "All right, that's settled. You carry on," she said. After exiting the meeting room, she no longer rushed but instead walked casually through the halls of City Hall. At that moment, her subordinate finally caught up, panting in frustration. "Team leader Zi Lang, you walked too fast." Then, his face filled with worry, he reminded her, "Team leader Zi Lang, have you forgotten? That spy has the ability to control others. How could you let him bite you so easily?" After saying that, he added with concern, "You are so noble. What if he controls you and makes you do unspeakable things?" Zi Lang's expression remained firm as she slowly replied, "Such immense power. Even if his body is torn apart, it can still mend itself. This kind of immortality." Without hesitation, she bluntly voiced her reckless thoughts. "He can do whatever he wants. Even if he tells me to strip and dance in the middle of the square, I'll comply." Zhang Si stood there, dumbfounded, scratching his head in confusion. After a fierce battle against the shape-shifting zombie Kane, peace was finally restored to City H with the dust settled. Zhang Si took full control of the city, initiating reforms and assigning tasks to his subordinates. The city soon resumed normal operations. Like any other city, City H began to develop its own economy. with various businesses emerging. A zombie clothing store opened, where enthusiastic female zombies eagerly greeted customers, excited about their new venture. "Welcome," they chimed in unison. Next came the zombie barbershop, catering to the city's undead population, who also wanted to maintain a clean and presentable appearance. Even the zombie real estate business was thriving. Zombie construction workers were busy erecting new buildings, while zombie real estate agents hustled to secure potential buyers. "Special offer on new houses. Comes with free interior decoration," they called out. To further modernize the city, a zombie driving school was also established. Now that zombies were bound by law, they had no choice but to take driving tests to obtain a license. Candidate number 54. Candidate number 54, the examiner called out, staring at a zombie who had confused the passenger seat for the driver's seat. "Why are you sitting in the passenger seat?" he asked. Baffled, the scene then shifted to Jiangxi, standing atop a high-rise building, gazing at his city. He took a sip from his coffee cup, thoroughly enjoying the view of his flourishing metropolis. The mighty zombie king was finally experiencing a brief moment of leisure and contentment. The scene changed once again. A personal file, Zhang Sis, was being held in someone's hands. A woman with long blonde hair and an eye patch furrowed her brows as she scrutinized the document. Zhang Si has a weak personality. No individuality whatsoever. If he were released into the world, he'd just be an ordinary person, she commented. Her subordinate handed her a cup of coffee and chimed in. "I don't understand why the Academy of the Extraordinary made him a team leader." Supervisor Chen, didn't the headmaster of the Steel Academy say something about this? The woman, addressed as Supervisor Chen, responded calmly. Academies clashing with each other is a daily occurrence. Baseless accusations and slander, there's nothing we haven't seen before. She paused before adding, but this time, we don't even need to accuse him falsely. I simply don't like this Zhang Si. A team leader with no personality whatsoever? There was a brief hesitation in her voice before she finally raised a crucial question. As for whether or not he's actually a zombie, Supervisor Chen crushed the document in her hand without hesitation and decisively said, "We'll know once we see for ourselves." Somewhere in the frozen north, the Arctic, a helicopter suddenly appeared in the icy skies above the Arctic. At the same time, a massive ship emerged along the Arctic coastline. Here, a young man stepped forward and greeted an older man with silver hair. "Dr. Odd," he called out. The man, addressed as Dr. Odd, finally spoke. "I heard that ancient human remains were discovered here?" The young man nodded. "Yes, a desiccated corpse. It's estimated to be thousands of years old." He continued, "We were conducting a scientific exploration when we discovered it buried 500 meters beneath the ice. We're currently trying to lift it out with a crane." Hearing this, Dr. Odd became intrigued and issued a warning. "Be careful not to damage the remains." Then, with deliberate calm, he added, "If he truly is an ancient human, this could be the greatest discovery in human civilization." In the distance, massive cranes were carefully lifting ice blocks from deep underground. A man on site signaled to the workers, "Be careful, lift it slowly." Dr. Odd pulled out a cigarette and muttered with anticipation, "I hope this will help advance our understanding of ancient history." Not far away, figures wrapped in thick fur coats stood watching. Their presence was mysterious. Gazing toward the excavation site, Dr. Odd admitted honestly, as the head of the archaeological division of the Academy, "This is the first time I've ever been this nervous." Below, workers continued coordinating, ensuring a smooth operation. "That's right, just like that. Set it down gently." A massive, enigmatic ice block was slowly lowered to the ground. Within the translucent ice, a shadowy figure could be seen. Encased inside was an extremely desiccated body with dark, leathery skin and long, flowing white hair that reached down to its waist. Upon seeing the figure within the ice, Dr. Odd was visibly stunned. "It looks like this?" Suddenly, from behind the young man, a sinister silhouette appeared. A terrifying figure clamped its hand over the young man's mouth and, without hesitation, opened its jaws wide. Then, in one swift motion, it sank its teeth deep into the defenseless young man's neck. Dr. Odd was utterly shocked by the sight and shouted in alarm, "Who are you? You're not one of us." Before anyone could react, the other personnel in the area were slaughtered in an instant. Dr. Odd was violently kicked to the ground, letting out a painful cry. The attacker coldly ordered those behind him, "Use him as a sacrifice." As the creature swarmed him, Dr. Odd screamed in agony. desperately calling for help. The figure above him showed no mercy and said casually, "Don't panic, I'm only taking your blood." A man with long, blue hair, who didn't seem entirely human, gazed intently ahead. Beside him, a woman with brown hair wiped the blood from her lips, grinning with satisfaction. At that moment, the massive ice block completely crashed onto the ground. The fur-clad figures immediately set to work, chipping away at the thick ice. As the figure inside the ice was gradually revealed, strange white mist began to billow out, filling the air with an eerie aura. The being encased within the ice slowly regained flesh and color, its once mummified form restoring itself with each passing second. The moment she stepped out of the ice, the brown-haired woman swiftly approached and draped a cloak over her shoulders. The fur-clad individuals immediately knelt before her, their voices filled with reverence. "Hail, Demon King!" Their admiration was fervent as they chanted in unison, "May the Demon King remain forever young." The woman, now revealed as the so-called Demon King, remained expressionless. Her gaze was cold, her words few, dressed in nothing but a thin garment beneath her heavy fur cloak. She finally spoke, her voice laced with deep-seated hatred. "That fool surnamed Zhang, is he still alive?" A man standing at the front, Xiao Hong, lowered his head in contemplation. His blue-skinned face betrayed a hint of unease. Kneeling before her in a show of deference, he carefully replied, "Your Majesty, Zhang Si is still alive. Even after 1,000 years, he remains in good health." Sweat dripped from his forehead as he stole a glance at Xiao Hong, his voice faltering. "I remember the last time he wiped out human civilization. And now, he coexists with them, even rebuilding his own kind among them." The maid standing beside the Demon King quickly stepped forward to support her. Xiao Hong narrowed his eyes, grinding out each word, "Zhang Si." The Demon King stared into the void, her voice like ice. "This time, I will not let you go." A metropolis bathed in neon lights. A massive city with towering skyscrapers and cutting-edge technology, Guangzhou Province, the capital of the academies. Inside the grand headquarters, Zhang Si was leisurely sipping his tea when a sharp voice suddenly rang out. "Your Majesty, you have a call." Inside the headquarters, a group of people stood solemnly, their expressions tense. Meanwhile, in a nearby medical ward, a patient lying in bed let out a loud wail, sending the doctor into a panicked frenzy. Tu Lang widened his eyes in confusion and asked, "What is that? I've never seen anything like it before." Behind him, Lam Chi hesitated and said, "It doesn't look like a zombie." The man's eyes were blood red as he growled and struggled violently. Despite having his hands and feet chained, two doctors held him down tightly and spoke. "According to our investigation, he was a member of the province's scientific archaeology team. He was found near the Arctic region. Even our province's archaeological team leader has gone missing. The investigation shows that he was just an ordinary person. But when we tried to capture him, two of our team leaders were injured." One of the doctors added. Xiao Xiao, who had been watching the situation closely alongside Tu Lang, suddenly spoke up. "It seems we'll have to call in an expert." A vehicle pulled up, and two men stood guard on either side of it. Zhang Si stepped out of the car. At once, everyone lined up in 2 rows and greeted him in unison. "Welcome, team leader Zhang Si." Bright lights illuminated the room as Zhang Si was escorted to a separate chamber. Inside, all eyes turned toward him. A man stepped forward, extended his hand, and said, "Hello, I'm team leader Gang of the Kang-kun Academy." He smiled at Zhang Si before asking, "Did you capture Dr. Kiet Min?" Zhang Si laughed loudly and replied, "Hello." Without lingering on the greeting, he walked past team leader Gang. Watching him go, Gang smirked with disdain and muttered, "As expected, just another lowly creature who dares to work with humans to achieve even half of his goals." Nearby, a brown-haired man with gold-rimmed glasses sneered, "He looks so weak. Why would our academy allow someone like him to be a team leader?" Standing next to him, team leader Kang Dai also looked unimpressed. He frowned and thought to himself, "And yet, they invited him to the academy? Are they asking for trouble?" Glancing around, he suddenly asked, "Where is team leader Kang Dai?" Meanwhile, the real team leader Kang Dai was sitting outside the chamber, shivering with anxiety. "I should have just stayed home," he muttered under his breath. Inside another room, terrifying growls echoed continuously. As Zhang Si entered, a doctor immediately spoke. "Zhang Si, look at this one. Do you know what kind of monster it is?" Zhang Si looked at him, speechless. and replied, I don't even know how old I am. And you expect me to know what this is? He reached out and touched the bite wound on the creature's neck. A flicker of shock crossed his eyes. Just then, Tu Lang entered the room, nervously carrying a glass of water alongside the others. He hesitantly asked, Zhang Si, what did you find out? The creature on the bed let out a low growl. Zhang Si slowly withdrew his hand from its neck. Suddenly, the creature shut its mouth and stared at Zhang Si in confusion. Zhang Si's lips curled into an amused smile as he looked at the being before him. Interesting, a bloodborne. A surge of powerful magic erupted from Zhang Si's body, sending a shockwave that hurled everyone nearby through the air. The man lying on the bed had tears welling up in the corners of his eyes. Terrified, he curled into himself, trembling. Zhang Si's voice was ice cold. I thought your kind went extinct. The immense force sent another blast outward, slamming team leader Gang against the wall. He groaned in pain. The brown-haired man with gold-rimmed glasses struggled to sit up and asked in confusion. What's going on? Why did team leader Zhang suddenly lose his temper? Team leader Gang's face darkened. What the hell is he doing? Meanwhile, Tu Lang and Xiao Xiao, both thrown to the ground, clutched their heads. Zhang Si stood still, staring at the man on the bed. After a moment of silence, he muttered, I remember wiping your entire kind out. His lips curled into a savage grin as he reached out and grabbed the man's throat. If that's the case, tell me, where is Chu Xiaohong? The one who loves drugging me. The man broke down, tears streaming as he screamed. I don't know anything. Please don't ask me. I only turned into a vampire yesterday. Before he could say another word, Zhang Si tightened his grip, reducing the man to a cloud of black smoke. Sweat poured down team leader Gang's face as he stammered. Did that weakling just do that? No way. Team leader Kang Dai shuddered in fear. I knew it. I should have just stayed home. Zhang Si, after finishing the deed, stood lost in thought. Tu Lang and Xiao Xiao hurried over to him. Tu Lang hesitated before asking, What's wrong, Zhang Si? Did you figure something out? She looked him in the eye, her voice urgent. Just now, you mentioned something about a blood clan? Zhang Si's expression turned serious. Be careful when you go out these days. Tu Lang and Xiao Xiao stared at him in shock. Then, Zhang Si scratched his head and forced a sheepish smile. Ah, I forgot. Both women immediately collapsed to the ground, groaning. Oh, come on. Later, at the Grand Tower, Tu Lang's annoyed voice echoed. Could you at least keep your head clear when you enter that state? Zhang Si, looking sheepish, mumbled, I really forgot. His hands fidgeted awkwardly. I'll remember next time. Team leader Gang glanced at him and muttered under his breath. What an idiot. Just then, Zhang Si turned around, his sharp gaze locking onto them. Team leader Gang and the brown-haired man with glasses stiffened, suddenly uneasy under his stare. Outside, rain poured heavily over the city. A voice echoed through the storm. Xiao Hong, Great King, this is our home. Lam Ling, looking up at the cobwebs hanging high above, hesitantly asked, Are you familiar with this place? Chu Xiaohong's expression was full of irritation as he slumped against a wall, letting the rain drench him completely. A single coin dropped to the ground, instantly drawing everyone's attention. A conceited man sneered, Isn't the capital city supposed to be under strict management? Why are there still beggars around? Tisk. His attendant hesitated before replying nervously. My lord, please don't mind them, picking up things like humans do. Lam Ling's eyes sparkled at the sight of the coin. Without hesitation, she lunged forward, shouting, Money, money, money. Chu Xiaohong narrowed her eyes before suddenly hurling a can against the wall, yelling in frustration, If things have already come to this, why did you summon me? The attendant beside her sobbed in anguish, choking out, My lord, do you have any idea how we've survived for the past 1,000 years? Her mind drifted back to a brutal memory, the fierce battle between Chu Xiaohong and Zhang Si. She continued, After that great battle between you and Zhang Si back then, you were reduced to a dried corpse. We were there, we saw everything. She trembled, gripping a cloth tightly between her hands and biting her lip in fear. Then he slaughtered our entire race just to ensure his own survival. Tears welled in her eyes as she wiped them with the cloth. We had to play dead to escape him. The terrifying image of Zhang Si resurfaced in her mind, making her shiver as she whispered, Because of his threat, we haven't dared to show ourselves for 1,000 years. She and Lam Ling shrank back behind the wall, fearfully avoiding every gaze. No matter where we went in the world, Whether among humans or the undead, the moment they saw us, we had to take a detour. As she spoke, tears streamed down her face. Her voice broke as she said, "We haven't left this alley for 1,000 years. Even the Grand Overseer is losing his mind." Chu Xiaohong gazed blankly into the void before furrowing her brows. "Then summoning me was pointless," she muttered. Leaning against the wall, she admitted bitterly, "I'm no match for him. Right now, I don't even have the right to shave Zhang Si's fur." Lam Ling, staring at her with determination, objected, "My lord, you are mistaken." With a stern expression, he continued, "The reason we revived you is because we've recently received critical intelligence." His expression darkened. "We have discovered someone who can make you invincible." The female attendant quickly added, "Yes, the one who can grant you absolute power." Chu Xiaohong glanced at them coldly. "Who?" Lam Ling pulled a newspaper from his coat and handed it to her. Meanwhile, Zhang Si and his men stood in silent contemplation, staring ahead. Before them was Dr. Kiet Min and his captured accomplices. Zhang Si's voice was devoid of warmth as he asked, "Why haven't you dealt with him already?" Tu Lang spoke seriously. "For now, we can't. He has planted too many spies among us. We need to root them all out first. And there's one more thing, his inhumane research documents. We must find and destroy them all." Zhang Si frowned. "What if he escapes?" Team leader Gang crossed his arms and laughed arrogantly. "How could he? He's tied up like that. How could he possibly run?" With a smug grin, he walked forward and leaned in to take a closer look before scoffing. "If he was captured by team leader Zhang, then let me take him to see our security measures." From the helicopter, they looked down upon a vast plain, densely packed with buildings. A voice rang out, "This is the prison built exclusively for us by the capital authorities. I've hollowed out an entire mountain, digging 3,000 meters deep. Inside the base, there was only a single hole designed to let light in. Armed guards manned cannons at every corner." He continued, "There are 1.500 floors in total and 100.000 soldiers stationed here." Standing inside an elevator, Zhang Si looked out in amazement as team leader Gang's voice continued explaining. "Even by elevator, it takes 30 minutes to reach the bottom floor. We have anti-aircraft guns, laser cannons, bazookas, you name it. We have it." Glancing at the rows of soldiers, he added smugly, "And this is just the appetizer." A group of soldiers wearing masks with glowing red stripes stood in rigid formation. One of them spoke sternly. "Every 100 floors has a dedicated team leader. There are 30 team leaders in total, along with 2 supreme commanders overseeing everything." Zhang Si remained silent, overwhelmed by the scale of the security. Team leader Gang, full of pride, smirked and continued, "With this level of defense, how could he possibly escape?" Below, they could see the prisoners chained to massive pillars. He continued with a self-satisfied grin, "We've even buried explosives as a precaution. Dr. Kiet Min is tied up with a massive explosive charge. Its destructive power is equivalent to 10.000 tons of TNT. If anyone even gets close to him, it'll detonate immediately." Crossing his arms, he added with a cocky expression, "Even if he manages to break out, he'd only be escaping to his death." Cold sweat trickled down Zhang Si's back. Team leader Gang chuckled, "Even an immortal would only be able to pick up the corpses afterward." Suddenly, he burst into laughter, then turned and sprinted away. His voice echoed through the air, "I'll leave you superhumans to it. Good luck." Zhang Si, still in his normal state, watched these ridiculous human precautions unfold and felt a chill run down his spine. "Crazy people, good luck with all of that. I'm out of here." A hand grabbed a tablet, streaming a live feed of the team leaders inside the base as they monitored the situation. At the same time, in a small alley, all 3 of Xiaohong's men froze, their eyes widening in shock. The atmosphere turned gloomy as Lan Ling spoke up. "Your Majesty, they've also planted self-destruct devices." She furiously shouted, "These despicable humans." The squad leader, Ying, lit the cigarette in his mouth and glanced at Zilang, curiously asking, "Did I forget to tell you? Supervisor Chen has arrived in Captain Yang's city for an inspection. You didn't even inform your boyfriend?" Her face darkened in irritation as she glared at him. "Get lost. If anything, you're the one who's his lover." She then snapped, "Why are you telling me all this?" Leaning against a nearby rock, he casually replied, "Chief Gang reported to Supervisor Chen that Captain Zhang is a Jiangxi. Not only that, but he even built an entire city for Jiangxi. I don't care whether Jiangxi is a Jiangxi or not, she responded coldly. Squad leader Ying glanced at Zilang and smirked. I only acknowledge the strong. She exhaled sharply, her gaze remaining indifferent. Meanwhile, in a bustling city filled with people, Zhang Si's face beamed with joy as he strolled along, drawing the attention of many. The human city is truly prosperous, he murmured. Elsewhere, Dr. Kiet Min remained silent, tied tightly to a large pillar. Inside, a figure quietly slid food across the floor. Next to him, his subordinate, also shackled, wept bitterly. We're doomed, he sobbed. Yet, Dr. Kiet Min showed no fear. With a sinister smile, he declared, Zhang Si, I must obtain your genes. Hearing this, his subordinate panicked. Dr. Min, what are you saying? We're about to be executed. But Dr. Kiet Min smirked confidently. No, they won't kill us, not until they get my research. Before I was captured, I had someone hide the documents in a place even I don't know. He added, his voice firm. Those fools keeping me alive will regret it. His subordinate hesitated, his face filled with worry. Zhang Si is too strong. Wait, forget about getting his liver. The hardest part is creating a being stronger than him. Dr. Kiet Min remained composed, his confidence unwavering. We need a powerful vessel, something strong enough to contain Zhang Si's genes. Then, I can conduct my research. But stop talking about research. His subordinate anxiously interjected. This place has the most advanced prison system in the world. How are we supposed to escape? We're just ordinary humans. Dr. Kiet Min's expression tightened as he fell into deep thought. Meanwhile, the figure delivering food approached them. Beside him, a humanoid robot stood, its mechanical hum filling the air. The intelligent machine had finished preparing their meal. The system alarm sounded. The robot gently brought the food to Dr. Kiet Min's mouth. His subordinate, upon seeing this, panicked and shouted, Min, Min. Dr. Kiet Min slowly chewed the food in his mouth, eating with great appetite. Hidden within his mouth was a tooth embedded with a miniature listening device. He remained silent, his expression dark and unreadable. Outside, a man stood deep in thought as the hum of machinery echoed around him. He spoke respectfully into a recording device. Where is the new corpse king's body being held? A voice on the other end responded. Doctor, it is in the experimental body lab on the 200th floor. Currently, 2 chief officers are guarding it. Meanwhile, in another room, a Blood Clan member lay unconscious on a bed. A voice replied, Understood, just follow my instructions and guard our vessel. On a busy street, Zhang Si walked casually, his eyes glancing at his phone screen. On the other end, Zilang pressed her phone to her ear and spoke. I have something to tell you. Zhang Si focused on her words. Chief Officer Gang has reported to Supervisor Chen that you built a city for Jiangxi. Supervisor Chen is now heading there for an inspection. Inside a moving vehicle, Supervisor Chen sat with her arms crossed, exuding a serious demeanor. Zilang urgently continued. Supervisor Chen is a provincial auditor. She's in charge of evaluating the conduct of group leaders. If she finds out the report is true, you'll be immediately dismissed as a leader. Sweat dripped down Zhang Si's face. He forced a nervous smile and muttered, To be honest, I am human. Hearing Zilang's nagging tone, his forehead became drenched with sweat like a summer storm. Don't think I don't know what kind of creatures are in your city. You know exactly who you are. She snapped. Get lost. Zhang Si stood frozen in place, raising both hands as he shouted. Damn it. Panic overtook him, his hands trembling. What do I do? What do I do? His gaze suddenly landed on something. Narrowing his eyes, he focused on a cosmetic store ahead. Sunlight streamed down, reflecting off the vehicles. At the same time, one of Supervisor Chen's subordinates respectfully opened the car door. Supervisor Chen, he announced. She looked ahead, her gaze locking onto the aircraft stationed before her. The plane to City H is ready, the subordinate informed her. Supervisor Chen let out a cold scoff. A leader without individuality doesn't deserve the position. That Zhang fellow needs to be dismissed. Above the city, multiple vehicles plummeted from the sky. Xiao He was stunned at the sight, watching as the cars crashed violently into the ground in front of a towering building. Zhang Si landed gently on the ground. Little He, looking confused, asked, What's wrong, Great King? Zhang Si stepped forward and hurriedly explained. Supervisor Chen is coming to inspect our city. Quickly, Distribute all the supplies and tell the zombie citizens to disguise themselves. If Supervisor Chen discovers that we are zombies, he will reclaim this city." As soon as Zhang Si finished speaking, he swiftly issued orders. Go to Zone Da Lang. Head to Zone C, hurry up." A figure carrying a floating vehicle above suddenly froze upon hearing the command. He hesitated, not wanting to turn back. Living in ruins means you have to be mindful of your expressions. Zhang Si warned. Others standing on the heights also stopped, listening intently to his every word. "Each of you is responsible for your own area. Move quickly. Deploy now." Go grabbed a stick. Sun, looking puzzled, glanced at Little Hay, who was applying makeup, and asked, "Will this really work?" Little Hay widened his eyes, looked up, and focused on putting in his contact lenses before replying. "If the Great King is doing this, he must have a reason." Zhang Si's subordinates waved their hands to announce, "The Great King has ordered, if you don't want to return to hiding under the overpass, come here and get your disguise supplies to protect the city. Everyone gets a share." A young zombie curiously asked, "Mom, what are they doing?" The mother calmly replied, "The Great King ordered us to pretend to be humans." A female zombie stood at the front, asking two of Zhang Si's subordinates who were applying powder, "Give me a set too. Is this how it's done?" Nearby, the young zombie clutched his mother's leg. "Mom, I want to do it too." The beautiful female zombie, holding a lipstick, turned around, making the child's eyes widen in astonishment. "Not so fast. Mom isn't done yet," she said. Just then, a Mao entered from outside. "We're back." A Go and Little Hay appeared, their faces covered in makeup. A Lang and a Mao gasped in shock. "What the hell? You guys are done already?" they exclaimed. A Go, fully made up, snapped, "Shut up and leave me alone." A Lang hesitated before asking, "Then, what should we do?" Little Hay sighed regretfully. "You two will have to make a little sacrifice." He took two collars and fastened them around a Lang and a Mao's necks, turning them into pets. The two looked at him in disbelief. Supervisor Chen should be arriving soon, but there's no sign of him yet. One of them muttered. Suddenly, both of them roared in protest. "Little Hay, we have the same status as everyone else. Why do we have to be pets?" Little Hay calmly responded, "Weren't you pets when you were alive?" As they looked up, a plane glided across the sky. Meanwhile, one of Supervisor Chen's subordinates beamed as he gazed ahead. "Good thing Supervisor Chen had the foresight to let us take the train here." Supervisor Chen stepped forward and spoke coldly. "Even if you use your backside to think, you should know that Guangzhou province doesn't have many group leaders. Our presence has surely been exposed. The best course of action is to take a detour and investigate from the lower-class citizens. That way, we can easily find clues about Zhang Si." Two of her subordinates whispered behind her. "Why does Supervisor Chen dislike Zhang Si so much? He's weak and cowardly." The other chimed in. "Aside from the minister, Supervisor Chen looks down on everyone. She has a bias against every person she sees." Supervisor Chen suddenly halted. The subordinate beside him panicked and warned, "Lower your voice. She might hear you." She frowned, turned her head sharply, and asked in an irritated tone, "I heard everything. And what if I do have a bias?" A voice echoed in her mind, making her expression darken. Ever since the minister gave up power, even stray dogs and cats can become group leaders. A vivid image of the minister standing tall appeared in her thoughts. Only true talents like the minister can lead humanity to prosperity. That commanding presence, that absolute dominance, only such a person deserves to be a ruler. Meanwhile, Zhang Si remained in his room, calmly enjoying his meal, completely unbothered by the chaos outside. Supervisor Chen, regaining her composure, spoke firmly, "Let's begin the investigation." She then walked off with her subordinates. Looking around, one of them remarked, "It's been a long time since the minister went on an expedition. He must be returning soon." Little Hay, a Go, a Lang, and a Mao remained silent, waiting. A Lang furrowed his brows. "Strange, why haven't they arrived yet? Logically, Supervisor Chen should be here by now." A Go replied, "She must be on the way." One of Supervisor Chen's subordinates noticed a store and stepped inside. "Sir, can I ask you something?" he inquired. Scanning the shop, he looked puzzled. "Hey, why do you only sell eggs?" The shopkeeper turned away awkwardly, forcing a smile. "What are you talking about? I don't hear anything. I didn't hear anything at all." The subordinate was bewildered. "Is he deaf?" Outside, another subordinate was gathering information. "Excuse me, Ever since Zhang Si became the city's leader. Has he oppressed you? The person he asked proudly pounded his chest. Not at all. Our great king is amazing. He not only gave us a place to live but also distributes free eggs every month. Suddenly, his arm detached and fell to the ground, startling both of them. Supervisor Chen's subordinate froze, his eyes widening in shock as he saw the severed hand on the ground twitching. Horrified, he screamed, "Hey, your hand just fell off." The man panicked, grabbed the severed hand, and ran off, shouting, "My mom's calling me home for dinner. This is just a fake hand, don't mind it." Supervisor Chen's subordinates were drenched in cold sweat. Furious, she stomped her foot and cursed. "Damn it, they're all lunatics. Today, I finally learned that humans can be just as stupid as zombies." Clenching her fists and gritting her teeth, she growled, "Damn you, Zhang Si, did he seriously build an entire city for crazy people?" She spun around, pointed at the subordinate collecting information, and ordered, "Write this down. This is the official document proving that group leader Zhang Si is a lunatic." Her subordinate immediately responded, "Understood." Clouds drifted lazily across the sky. Meanwhile, Zhang Si sat by himself, laughing uncontrollably. One of his subordinates, bewildered, asked, "Group leader Zhang Si, what's wrong?" A ghost stepped closer. "What happened?" The subordinate shook his head. "I don't know." He finished eating, and then he suddenly started acting crazy, rambling nonsense, shaking all over. A ghost's eyes widened in alarm upon hearing this. Grabbing the subordinate's collar, he shouted, "Wait, what did you feed the great king?" Terrified, the subordinate stammered, "I don't know." When he got back, he complained about being hungry. Then, recalling the meal, he muttered, "We made him chili fried eggs." A ghost's face went pale. "Oh no, the great king can't eat that." The subordinate, confused, asked, "What happens if he eats it?" Zhang Si remained in a corner, staring out the glass window. His eyes gleamed dangerously, and a twisted grin spread across his face. A ghost anxiously explained, "That's the great king's stimulant. He's going to go berserk for a whole month." Meanwhile, Little Hay and the others were still waiting, pressing his phone to his ear. He answered, "Hello?" A ghost's frantic voice came through the line. "Little Hay, we've got a huge problem. The great king ate chili fried eggs, it's a disaster." Little Hay was stunned. "What? But I hid all the chili. I don't know how they found any." A ghost replied, equally baffled, "What do we do now?" Little Hay sighed helplessly. "Telling me won't help, I don't know either." A cam, noticing Little Hay's distress, asked hesitantly, "Little Hay, do you think the great king will take out the entire surveillance team?" Little Hay narrowed his eyes, hesitated for a moment, then muttered, "It's possible." Fluffy clouds drifted lazily across the sky. Annoyed, Supervisor Chen ordered, "Let's go. There's nothing left to investigate here. We'll check somewhere else." Just as she was about to move, she instinctively froze and looked up. A massive truck was plummeting from above. It crashed onto the ground with a deafening impact, leaving a deep crack in the earth. Supervisor Chen screamed in shock. From above, Zhang Si descended, landing heavily on top of the truck. Supervisor Chen and her subordinates were thrown off balance. Falling to the ground, she stammered, What just happened? Was that a truck?" Furrowing his brows, Zhang Si smirked maliciously. "Supervisor Chen, since you're already here, let me take you on a little tour." Her subordinates scrambled to their feet, utterly bewildered. What the hell just happened? Who is that guy? Zhang Si stood atop the truck, his shadow looming over Supervisor Chen. His face was dark and unreadable. She hesitated, her voice trembling. "Why you? Who are you?" His lips curled into a sly grin. "Already forgotten me so soon?" His eyes gleamed mischievously. "I'm Zhang Si, the one you've been looking for." Supervisor Chen's subordinates gasped in shock. She gawked at him, stunned. "What?" Another subordinate stammered. "Wait, you're Zhang Si?" Supervisor Chen quickly got to her feet. "I remember you looking nothing like this." Zhang Si leapt down from the truck, his smirk widening. "That's because I was wearing a mask." Seeing him advance, she instinctively stepped back in alarm. Wait, stay away from me." Zhang Si snapped his fingers and spoke smoothly. "Supervisor Chen traveled such a long way to visit. I prepared a little welcome gift." At his signal, his subordinates appeared, each holding a bowl of stir-fried eggs with chili. Zhang Si leaned in dangerously close to her face. "We don't eat humans." Her brows furrowed. "What?" Without warning, Zhang Si grabbed her by the collar and effortlessly lifted her off the ground. Squatting slightly, he prepared to jump. This is the outskirts. Not exactly the best place for an investigation, don't you think? His legs tensed, then, with a powerful burst, he soared into the sky, taking Supervisor Chen with him. She screamed in sheer panic. Her two subordinates watched in horror. Supervisor Chen, one of them stared in disbelief, eyes wide. Holy crap, he jumped that high? The other one snapped back to reality. Quit gawking and chase after them. Meanwhile, Little Hay spotted Zhang Si in midair, carrying Supervisor Chen. There, Supervisor Chen is over there, he shouted. A cam added, and the Great King is with her. Hurry. Suspended high above the ground, Supervisor Chen flailed in terror, her screams echoing through the sky. Zhang Si selected a nearby building and landed gracefully on its rooftop. Standing tall, he lifted Supervisor Chen higher. Making her look down, he gently shook her, smirking. Take a good look, this is my city. With a sweeping gesture, he introduced, over 2.000.000 square kilometers. And we're preparing to expand even further. His gaze shifted toward a glass-windowed corporate office. We have high-ranking office employees, publicly listed companies. Then, motioning toward a group of zombies constructing a high-rise building, he continued, and an entire architectural industry. Every necessary sector exists here. Over 1.000 job positions. We contribute nearly 100 billion in tax revenue to Guangzhou. Without warning, Zhang Si yanked Supervisor Chen and leapt off the building. She wailed in terror, tears streaming down her face. I get it already. Just let me down. Dragging her along, Zhang Si casually remarked, now, let's talk about law enforcement. He pulled her to a traffic light. In this city, we strictly adhere to legal regulations. No one violates traffic laws. A truck driver approached, spotting Zhang Si and instantly panicking. Inside the truck, another person shouted in alarm. Crap, my leg just cramped up. Unbothered, Zhang Si continued his speech. If a problem arises, then, without hesitation, he raised his foot and kicked the truck. Supervisor Chen broke into a cold sweat and screamed. Wait, but it was too late. The truck went soaring, crashing into a high-rise building. At that moment, her subordinates arrived, hastily paying for their taxi. They froze, wide-eyed, as they saw the truck embedded into the skyscraper. Little Hay swiftly flew over, pulling the driver from the wreckage. Supervisor Chen stammered, unable to form words. Why you just killed someone? Zhang Si's voice was calm and cold. Not at all. As his subordinates appeared, he explained, every one of my people has their own unique abilities. We don't let our citizens die in vain. The intersection was eerily silent, with not a single car in sight. Supervisor Chen's two subordinates rushed toward her. Zhang Si tossed her over to them. They caught her hastily, still shaken. Turning to Little Hay and his group, Zhang Si declared, I know why Supervisor Chen came here today. Let her go. His followers remained silent, observing him carefully. Zhang Si's eyes darkened as he spoke again, his voice low and threatening. But tell me, who dares stop me from expanding this city? The truck, still lodged into the high-rise, groaned under the weight of destruction. His tone grew even colder. If anyone's tired of living, they're welcome to try. Supervisor Chen's subordinates gasped, their jaws dropping, before screaming in terror.